What is up, Facebook, and what is up, Instagram? So we're live, as always. I've kind of made it a Sunday thing because I think Sunday's the best time for me to try not to say a slur word. But I have occasionally slipped up out there, and that's a funny thing about when people think you become a Christian or you're a Christian, like that you're going to hell because you say a bad word or something like that. But there's a time and place for everything. Go ahead and tell you right now. That's just my opinion. May be wrong, and I may hold up the line one day if you die after me. I may hold up the line for a long ways, but I know one thing: I'm not a snitch. I never tell on everybody behind me, And if I can see over the pearly gates and look over in that chamber and see some of y'all in there, I'm not going to be like, well, how'd they get in there? I'm not one of those. So anyway, I got a full sledge of notes here that I'm going to go by just because I'm going to try to stay on topic tonight because I have so much that I want to put into a blueprint for you, if you will. So I'm going to get back over here on those notes. So there's a lot of people out there that's trying to distract you right now. There's a lot of the swamp that's trying to either linger on the bottom levels. They're trying to either linger and or grow back. All right. And the way you identify these kind of people is knowing what the commander's working with. All right. We are a nation of laws and orders. Now, I'm not a law and order guy simply because it's a law. There's a lot of laws on paper that need to be abolished. There is no doubt. But if we don't have laws and orders, then what we're going to have is a bunch of people walking around taking the law into their hands based on their little simple minds, their little simple everything. We're already in a nation of shambles where we have people we have veterans who don't even know the very laws and orders they served under. Then we have people who take up for those morons, all right, simply because they got a title beside their name, veteran. They're no different than a congressman or woman who don't know anything about the laws and orders. It don't matter who you are. If you don't know the very principles of this nation, the functions and operations of the three branches of government, the functions and operations of what our founders established, the whole reason we are here, the whole reason we're having this conversation, the whole reason we're in these podcasts and this fight that we're in is because of what our founders did. You have liberals out there, the liberals and the Democrats, they say the terms Constitution, they use those terms. They use the terms Constitution. They never use the Declaration of Independence, ever. Not one Democrat or liberal ever says the Declaration of Independence because that's how they get their ass beat. That's how they get their asses whooped. Is the Declaration of Independence. So all these low-level hanging fruit that's trying to deceive you and trick you and spread false information, false accusations, people out there using the terms like grifter, all right, those are deep state and or morons. They're one or the other. If you're a grifter because you write a book or you sell apparel, then that means every singer-songwriter on the planet is a grifter. Every single person who's ever written a book, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, all grifters. So if you're hearing terms like that, or they're trying to distract you and deceive you and say, oh, this is hogwash and this, it's amazing to me, though, that it's not liberals. Liberals are fighting a whole other, they're not fighting, they're just blabbing off a whole, it's mainly Republicans and or conservatives and or patriots who are doing the most fighting against each other. And President Trump's alluded to this over and over and over again. Why is it always Republicans fighting with each other? Because Republicans are the same thing. They don't know their head from a hole in the ground. Some of them's heads are so far up their rear ends, they can do what? Check themselves for a tonsillectomy. Just because you have a title beside your name, no matter what it is, doctor, PhD, MD, juris, it doesn't matter. If you don't know what is going on and the blueprint of what's going on. And you can know that right now what's taking place, 45-47 has a blueprint. So you could be any title out there. It don't matter if you were a general. It doesn't matter if you were a full bird colonel. It doesn't matter what rank in the military. If you don't know what is currently invoked right now via all the laws and orders and how to pair them together directly and indirectly, you can look just as much as a moron as everybody else. But at least the liberals, they all hate one thing and they hate it equally, even though they have no clue what's going on and probably don't care to know what's going on, most of them. But Republicans are the worst. Republicans and conservatives and people calling themselves patriots are the worst, because you still want your own little cookie with your own little icing, with your own little candle in it, and you want it your way, and it's not your way. Then when you have someone like me who just don't care about status and don't care about popularity and don't care about cancellation status, anyone who cares about cancellation status in the first place proves their allegiance. To this day, I cannot monetize my pages. It wouldn't try to. Which means that every one of my Facebooks where they have a high amount of views cannot be monetized. Which means I'm sitting in this chair right now on my time and my dime. And you know why? Because I love shitting in the Wheaties of people who are lying to you and trying to deceive you. I don't need your money. I don't have donation links up. I don't have donation links. All right, I have a PayPal because I use it with buddies. I have a Venmo because I use it with buddies. I have all those things. But I guarantee you, you can go on my pages. You will not find a single time have I ever dropped a, hey, donate to me. Here's a link, donate to me. They're on my websites because what has happened, there was a group of people when I first was put onto the scene way back in 2022. There was a group of people who do this on purpose. They claim to know you, and they claim that they know Derek Jonhson or whoever you are. That wasn't just me. There's a group of people out there. We know who they are. We have everything on them, by the way, where they live, who they are, everything about them. All right. If they're females, they specifically leech onto you and latch onto you, and they set up all these Venmos and PayPals, and they put the person's name, my name, and other people's names on there, and it looks like mine. And they're the ones doing what? Raking in the money, making it look like mine. So I had to put mine on my pages. Therefore, you have a what? Separation of what is and what isn't. Because there were a lot of people 3 years ago that made a lot of money off of my name, and that's all they do. They are deceptive. They are liars, and they are thieves. But anyone who knows me, and all my team that works for me, knows for a fact that we don't do that. I have never done that. I don't have endorsements. If you'll look on my telegrams, if you'll look on all my social media, if you'll look on there, on all my social media, you never see me sharing anybody's work. Everything I do is all mine. The only people that I will share are people who are verified. For instance, Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, all right, Special Operations, Australian military, all right, little things like that, but they're verified and they are real and they are authentic, and they're military. That's the only people that I have ever done. Not that he needs me, he don't need me, but there was another veteran out there. Shared a link one time because they're a veteran and we were in the same unit in the military. Other than that, you don't see me share anything. It's all straight off the top of the dome right here and what I've been signed to do. Right? I was given an assignment and I'm doing it. How come no FBI, CIA, or anybody's knocked on my door? Is it perhaps because I have a badge via the Department of War? Is that probably why? I think that's probably why, right? All right, so if I'm going to brag a little bit, everything I have is authenticated. All right, it's all authentic. All right, and I can prove it if I need to. But there are a lot of people along the way that stumble in some of you out there. They're stumbling you. If they don't stumble me, don't let them stumble you. Don't let them get under you. Anyone who's trying to distract you right now from me or someone like me, they are a moron and or they are deep state swamp trying to grow back. And I think it's the ultimate pinnacle whenever someone's calling you a grifter and they have donation links all over their link tree, but calling me a grifter. That is hilarious. That is so freaking humorous that my link tree, nothing. My pages, nothing. And the very people calling me a grifter, link tree loaded with donation links. That is a hypocrite. That is bigotry. That is somebody who is so dumb they cannot pour piss out of a number 5 wash tub. They are that stupid. Those are the people, though, that are distracting people. Those are the ones who can grow and distract people, because so many people are being lazy at this moment. If I was in the commander room, because I don't have to be in the war room to be disappointed, but if I was in the war room, the disappointment with the generals and the admirals where Americans are right now, still being so lazy when this is in a clear blueprint, got to be very, very disappointing. And then you wonder why it had to drag out this way. It's a rolling operation. The only people who can't see anything are the people who are still sitting on your thumbs. You want everything to be done for you. You want someone to read it to you in a fairy tale nursery rhyme that is so watered down that there is no way possible to dummy this down anymore. And one of the recent books that I was asked to write a long time ago and just now got to it, but they said, can you dummy it down? I'm like, no, I will not dummy anything down. I believe in Americans more than that. Now, it ain't all about me and what I think and what I believe, but personally, since I was assigned to do this and they asked me to do this, no, I'm not dummying anything down. You will elevate yourself. You have to elevate yourself, though. We can help you, I can aid you, and I can pick you up, and I can carry you, but you've got to, at some point, find your feet, find your voice, and find your calling and your purpose. A lot of you are just oxygen occupiers. That's all you're doing. You're just an oxygen occupier. Now, comments are awesome, and comments help these posts get shared more and more and visible more and more. They are awesome. However, you cannot just be in the comment boxes. When the good Lord, or whatever you believe in, when you cross over the next path, when you leave this world, the good Lord ain't going to say, oh, you fought a good fight and you finished the race simply because you hung out in the comment boxes. And I will tell you what right now, you will never be criticized more than anyone doing more than you. You will always be criticized by morons and idiots who do nothing, don't know anything, so don't worry about it. They're down there and they're behind you for a reason. And it's also publicity. So negative publicity like that is publicity. The kind of negative publicity you don't want is when you try to steal a federal trademark or something like that. That's called stupidity, and that's called ignorance, but it also makes you a criminal, all right, because that's a felony. So when you do things like that, so there's some negative publicity out there you don't want. And some of you, it doesn't matter if you are or not have a platform. You can just be in the comment box. Don't worry about people. All right, don't worry about them. We have a message to send. Now, we're winning this war. The war is won. It's a pre-planned, strategic, and special operation. I know it sounds like a broken record, but I keep the ball cap right here close by all the time. 45-47 is your visual. This is already your visual validation. President Trump put this on his ball cap April the 2nd, 2023, long before November of the election. How is that so hard to comprehend? He put this on his ball cap a year and 7 months. What is that? 17? A year and 7 months before He was elected, and he told you, I will be elected. I will be your next president. Oh, yeah, you're going to have some morons out there. Oh, he just got lucky and said that. No, no, no. 45-47. So you're the only one who can control your mind, your intelligence, and your knowledge. You're the only one who can do that. I can aid you and help you and whatever else. And that's what I'm here for. But to think that I'm going to trip over some little ankle-biting chihuahuas and Pomeranians who do nothing but yeah all the time, you need to grow some. All right? And if you're a female, grow something else the other way. All right? Stand up. These people are not winning. They're not going to win. The battle's already won. All right? But you still have to fight in your friend base, your family, your neighborhood, your town, your city, your county. All right? The bigger cities, the state, and federal if you get called up to it. And if you're a veteran, veterans out there, just because you served in the military doesn't mean that you know the laws and the orders. There are so many layers of military laws and military orders, and then also federal laws and federal orders. So you can be called back into a position if you display that you have the knowledge and the intelligence. You can always be called back. Even if it's not in service, it could be external. You can always be called back and put into a position like I was. Now, I'm one tiny little notch. But all of us tiny little notches add up. So if you want to be a tiny little notch and you want to be a part of that addition, then act like it. Any veteran out there that says that this is hogwash, you should have your DD-214 stripped. Every bit of your service should be stripped. If you say that military laws, military orders, military strategies, military tactics, military regulations, military customs, executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations are all hogwash and conspiracy theories, you should have your DD-214 and all of your service stripped. Because you're nothing but a liberal and an enemy of the republic when you say stuff like that. You know nothing about our history. You know nothing about our foundation. You know nothing about anything invoked right now via laws and orders that more than clearly outline there is a strategic and special operation going on via irregular warfare and unconventional warfare. And it requires time, initiative, reading, studying, and comprehension of layers. That is why so many females follow me. That's just why about 85% of 1 million followers total follow me. Because females are not quick to judge, all right, certain things. Compartmentalization, multitasking, reading, comprehension, and piecing all those together. And just like I always say, when a woman, a female, the real women out there, the real females, they will absolutely, when a male says it is a fact, a woman is going to be like, well, we're going to find out about that. So guys out there, you with your balls that are tinier than a set of BBs, all right, that keep calling me hogwash and a conspiracy theorist, but never show up anywhere. I've been all over this country for 3 years now. You never show up. You don't even have the balls. What little tiny bit you got, you don't even have the balls to show up and bring laws and orders and show the people where it's inconsistent and or incorrect. All you do is say, oh, this is all false. You never show how they're false. You never show how they're incorrect. You just say, they're false, he's lying, that's not true. You never show how. Because you don't know. And you don't know anything, because it most certainly does mean what they say, and the dash means exactly what it says. So all of you males out there, when a female hears that that's a fact, they're going to go check it out. I wouldn't be here today 3 years and running, over 3 years, with #1 best-selling books that sell like hotcakes. They sell like Krispy Kreme donuts in front of a Weight Watchers event. All right, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for females. All right, and every female that follows me, guess what they have done? They have more balls than you, men. A lot of you men out there, these females have more virtual balls than you. They have read, they have studied, they have pieced it all together. And the females are why I have a platform and why I'm here today. So guess what? That means we have more female patriots, not just midnight riders this time around in history, because Paul Revere and old Dawson and others weren't the only midnight riders back in the Revolutionary War. We had females who didn't get recognized by name back then, but I'm going to make sure the females get recognized because the females have more balls in this nation than most of you men out there. You're a bunch of pussies. And the women who know what that word means, all right, in the right kind of context, are all okay with me also saying that, all right? Because that's what you're acting like, that's what you look like, and when you want to challenge someone, when you have no knowledge, no intelligence, you haven't read, you haven't studied, you haven't pieced anything together, that's what you're going up against. I'm going to tell you what right now, when you go up against all these women, especially those of you that it might be your wife that you're belittling. I got a message this week from someone who said their husband is ridiculing them and belittling them. You need your ass whooped. That's what you need. That's exactly what you need. You need an attitude adjustment. You need a frying pan across your freaking head for belittling and talking down to your wife. All right, your wife who has provided for you all these years. That's what you need. All you women out there, kudos to you for having more balls than the men. Kudos for you for being the real midnight riders, and you ain't even doing it at midnight anymore. This is all global. It's all visuals. Kudos to you. So guys out there, you probably need to step up to the plate because you're looking like exactly what you look like. And the whole reason we got in this situation and we needed an operation like this is because you had no balls. Past tense. We got here because of your laziness and all of you. Oh, well, this is what Congress gets paid to do. Oh, it'll just work itself out. Did it just work itself out? And your little fancies out there. I swear, some of you that claim to be Republicans and patriots out there, no, you're really not. The women are more the patriots. And that's not a knock to the women whatsoever. Because, again, I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for women who read, study, comprehend, put it all together, and then all these women out there. I've been all over the nation to small groups and events, and it's women who have put them together. It is women who have organized it. It is women who are studying in laws and orders. They are printing out what I had the documents before I had the books. Women printing out all the laws and the orders and sitting there, and they're having small groups. And they're going to their friends and their family, and they're saying, you got to read this, you got to read this, you got to study this. This is what you're watching. While what are you men are doing? What are you men? Whining, complaining, griping, fussing. That ain't so. That ain't correct. You ain't said how it ain't so. You haven't proven how it ain't so. You haven't taken the laws and the orders and shown how it ain't so because you can't do so. You can't do so. The laws and the orders currently invoked that make up this dash, which is the blueprint, more than clearly outline what's going on. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to be left behind in history. And women, kudos to the ladies. Your name should be all over the history books this time around. This time around, that's the way it's going to be. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, you better hope some of your ladies out there, some of your women, especially your wives and your girlfriends, you better hope they don't ever close them legs off to you, because that's what I recommend they do. Until you learn the laws and orders and you can stand there like you were standing at a position of attention, and they ask you 4 trillion questions until you can answer them top to bottom with some little passion behind it, not that you memorized it just because you want to have a little loving that night. You should be closed off and cut off. And every woman out there, should do that to their husbands. That's what I would do. If I was a female, I'd say no cooking and no loving until you can straighten up, until you can quote some laws and orders of what's going on right now. Until you start acting like a man, then you ain't going to get what a man thinks he deserves and what he wants. That is how we could straighten up this nation, like that. If we took adultery that the military slaps in, I was just telling someone the other night, military puts adultery on your resume, if you will. It goes on your record. So if you're caught cheating and you're caught doing something, record. And it follows you around. All right, and let's just say you're in a bar at Fort Benning, Georgia, 2 a.m., right, and something happens, and then your wife's at home, all right, you got this on your record, and then an MP walks in, there was an altercation, and they check your record, they say, hey, Specialist Smith, what are you doing in the bar tonight at 2 a.m. and your wife's at home, and on record here it shows adultery. What are you doing in the bar? Boy, if we apply military to the civilian world, I'm going to tell you what, all these little men with their balls the size of BBs would straighten up pretty quickly. So ladies out there, again, kudos to you. Kudos to you, ladies. You deserve it. Woo! All right, I'm fired up now. All right. So, let me show you an example. 2 years ago, there was a person who followed me around on social media. And they said executive orders, extensions, or continuations are just what presidents do. That moron is nowhere to be found now. All right. That moron, was doing that when, quote unquote, Biden looked like he was president to the world. But now those continuation executive orders don't look so good for the libtards, do they? So see how stupid people act and how stupid people are? This person actually confirmed in a jealous way, in a moronic way, in an ignorant way, they actually confirmed the dash. They confirmed the Midnight Rider Rides Again. They confirmed my #1 best-selling books. All because they were jealous and stupid and ignorant back during that time period. They didn't know what was coming. I already had it in my documents. We're in a military occupation, military operation. Long before President Trump put this on his ball cap, my documents were in publication January 2021. Long before President Trump put that dash there, long before that dash became validated. That is why it pays to know the laws and the orders and how they operate and they function. Because that moron can't be found anywhere right now. And rightfully so, because they're a what? They're a moron. And you have to just call a spade a spade. They displayed being a moron, so they got to be called a moron. All right? So let's go back. We're going to backtrack a little bit now. So what are the odds, again, that President Trump rolled down the escalator 4 days after the Law of War Manual was reissued? 4 days now. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 days after the Law of War Manual was reissued, President Donald John Trump, then just regular Donald John Trump, rolls down the escalator. So the Law of War Manual, June the 12th, 2015. President Trump, June the 16th, 2015. What are the odds that the Law of War Manual, that they took, they being federal and military attorneys, what are the odds that they took the Law of War Manuals from Germany, Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom, plus they took the Lieber Code of 1863, the Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, and the Nuremberg Trials? What are the odds that they took all those, the strengths of all those, and combined those in a new Law of War Manual for the United States military? Do you not know what just came out a little over a week ago in the movie theaters, the Nuremberg movie? Oh. Are they getting people ready for something? Derek Jonhson, are they getting people ready for something? law war manuals: Canada, Australia, Germany, United Kingdom. Do we not know where what most of those nations and countries tie into? Did you hear Canada? That's in the Articles of Confederation, our first constitution in the middle of the Revolutionary War, right before they rewrote the Constitution. What happened in Germany again in history? What happened in Australia and the United Kingdom? You know why Australians sound like they're from Great Britain? Some of you probably need to go back and do some research on history. So federal and military lawyers took the law war manuals from Germany, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom. Then they took the strengths of the Hague Conventions, the Nuremberg Trials, the Geneva Conventions, and the Liber Code of 1863, and combined all those strengths into our new law war manual. Then, out of nowhere, in 2016, just out of nowhere, to the average schmuck out there, especially the average male whose balls are the size of BBs, all right, that thinks that military everything is a conspiracy theory, that President Trump just says all the time, laws and orders, 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 laws. But then a guy who's a retired veteran with a badge, a specific badge linked to the Department of War, tells you all those laws and orders and puts it as simplified as possible. It's a conspiracy theory. I'm telling you, don't ever vote for Derek Jonhson. If you see my name on the ballot and it has confirmed me, I will deport your ass quicker than a cat can lick its rear end for calling me or anybody any kind of name as such, and also saying that military anything is a conspiracy theory. You will find your ass somewhere like Tasmania. All right? That's where you're going to be. You better hope that you watched enough Survivor episodes that you can survive, because you won't get any help from me. Plain and simple. One-way ticket, out of here. And I'm going to put you on the worst plane possible. The worst. It may even be a crop duster. What are the odds that out of nowhere, to the average folks out there, what are the odds after that law war manual was reissued and all those things that were part of it, that reads in it, President Donald John Trump rolls down the escalator. February the next year, 2016, Barack Hussein Obama, the radical Muslim. So let's just go ahead and clarify one thing. Not all Muslims are jihadists, but all jihadists are Muslims. All right? So out of nowhere, so you got Barack is what I call him. Barack Hussein Obama. Osama, yo mama, Obama. February 2016 was in a speech somewhere, and he says that we're going to close Guantanamo Bay. All right. Well, he had an executive order that he had signed to get that process started. All right. How come from February 2016 to January the 20th at 11:59 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, how come Barack Hussein Obama and his Congress didn't shut down Guantanamo Bay? Was it perhaps because the same day that Barack Hussein, yo mama, Obama said that President Donald John Trump said, oh, and by the way, I heard what someone said today. Yes, we are going to keep Guantanamo Bay open. And then he didn't do it in 2017. He did it January the 30th, 2018, in an executive order. Revoked Barack Hussein, yo mama, Obama's executive order. Now, an executive order cannot shut down Guantanamo Bay. It requires action to that order. But because Barack Hussein Obama put it in executive order, President Trump's executive order revoked his. That's how that works. February, March, April 2016, the United States Special Operations Command, see this little ball cap back here? See that spearhead, tip of the spear? Special Operations Command puts out a new publication for unconventional warfare. And they changed a word in there. That used to say agitation. It changed from agitation in 1966 to assassination. And it has a little clause behind it. And every bit of that aspect is what you witness with everything that looked like an assassination everywhere. April 2016. May 2016. The Military Justice Act. Out of nowhere, for the average folks out there, just out of nowhere, didn't know about the Law War Manual, didn't know about Guantanamo Bay, didn't hear the talks about Guantanamo Bay, didn't hear what President Trump said in response to Barack, yo mama, Obama, all right, didn't hear that, didn't know anything about unconventional warfare because a lot of veterans don't even know their own simple laws and orders of the simplicities of the military, much less irregular warfare and unconventional warfare. So they definitely didn't know that Special Operations Command puts out a new book. Didn't know that the word agitation went to assassination in a very specific pyramid for resistance operations, for revolutions. Don't know that the paragraph above that pyramid says that if the United States government does not sign on to this, military can still act, because we were the first established in this nation. Military Justice Act. Ginsburg, the more liberal Supreme Court. Hey, libtards, it's your people, you morons. You remember in the movie Home Alone? Hey, you guys give up or you're thirsty for more? You guys are morons out there, you libtards. Every libtard needs deported right now. The ones I've seen, they all need deported. They don't even need a second chance. They need deported. Straight up. They're enemies of the Republic. They need out of here. And a lot of Republicans, you're working your way right up on that list as well, because you don't know the simplicities. The Ginsburg Moore Libtard Supreme Court clarified out of nowhere in the Military Justice Act of 2016 that military laws and courts are separate from federal laws and courts. But let me tell you, let me just show you what's happened recently. There's a certain little group of people out there, they're not that big, so they're not even worthy of their name to be mentioned. But if you hear this, this is what this is for. If you hear chatter out there that civilians cannot be tried in military courts, wrong. Oh, yes, they can. So here's how you show when people are trying to deceive you, they're trying to mislead you, they're trying to say that a retired veteran who's been with the president over 14 times in a year signed my contract in front of him to write these books, to go on radio and TV under a publicity contract with the publicist pushing me out there to get this around, to spread this word around, to put this out there in your ears, in your hands, in your eyes, in your brains. All right? This is how you tell morons and deep state, low-level hanging fruit. If you hear anyone out there saying civilians cannot be tried in military courts, and then they say Derek Johnson's a liar and he's a grifter and he's a... If you fall for that, and if you follow that, then you probably are that. And good riddance to you. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, because we don't want you here, don't need you here. And if you act like an enemy, we're going to treat you like an enemy. Because that whole verbiage and lingo is verbiage and context of morons and or deep state. So let me read to you where the law shows, yes indeed, civilians can most certainly be tried in military courts. The first thing we're going to go to is a little thing called the Geneva Conventions. Oh, the Geneva Conventions? Didn't Derek Jonhson, old Rattletrap 1776, just mention the Geneva Conventions a while ago with the new Law War Manual? The new United States Law War Manual that President Donald John Trump just keeps, for some reason, in press conferences to average folks who can't even name the three branches of government. He's telling average folks daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, he's using terms straight out of the Law War Manual. Now, why would Donald John Trump be using terms straight out of the Law War Manual when Americans don't even know the simplicities of government? The Law War Manual that federal and military attorneys took, the Law War Manuals from Germany. What happened in Germany? What happened with the United Kingdom and Australia? And then Canada? Do we hear the Crown? Does anybody hear the Crown? Pretty sure I hear the Crown. All right. The Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, the Nuremberg Trials, and Liber Code of 1863. Well, let's just read right here what it says in Article 66 of the Geneva Conventions. Although international human rights law generally prohibits civilians from appearing before military courts, but Article 66 constitutes, in the case of protected persons in occupied territory. Woo! What is the term that President Trump has been saying over and over and over again in press conferences? We are an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. Now, what is President Donald John Trump doing using Law War Manual terms for the average person out there who can barely tie a shoelace correctly? Some of these morons can't even tie Velcro shoes correctly. What is President Trump doing using white flag of surrender, capitulation, puppet government, occupied territory? Occupied territory and puppet government are in the same chapter of the Law War Manual. Guess what that chapter is, you morons? Military occupation. What did you just say? Case of protected persons in occupied territory. Now let's read another portion. Yes, civilians can be tried in military courts for serious offenses like treason or crimes against humanity. International law generally discourages the military trial of civilians and recommends that such jurisdiction be limited to exceptional circumstances where there is a clear legal basis and compelling reasons and civilian courts are unable to function. Well, you know what that means? You freaking morons out there. You know what that means? That says right there, when civilian courts are unable to function. Why wouldn't they be able to function, morons? Oh, perhaps because of a what? Continuity of government. Oh, yeah. That little thing called a continuity of government. Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020, invoked by President Donald John Trump, the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy. the invocation of a continuity of government. Now, why would, quote unquote, Joe Biden partially revoke an executive order of a continuity of government the very last 24-hour day of a presidency? Why didn't, quote unquote, Joe terminate that executive order completely, not partially, on January the 20th, 2021, or the first full year of 2021? Why would, quote unquote, Joe wait to the last 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity of government? I love when morons look stupid. All right, let's go to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Uh-oh. What is that, morons? All of you morons out there, one of them particularly happens to be a veteran out there who said this. So this is to you, moron veteran. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, December the 20th, 2019. Ooh, the Justice and Defense.gov on December the 20th, 2019. You know what day December the 20th, 2019 is, you morons? Oh, that happens to be the day that the NDAA of 2020 was passed. That happens to be the day that an entry was put into the War and National Defense War Powers Resolution Act of 1973. That just so happens to be the key section of the whole operation that's taking place with Venezuela right now, the Southern Command, Northern Command, everything. All your National Guard being federalized, every aspect falls up under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. And here's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is what? Military law. When you raise your right hands, veterans, you reserve components and active duty, you raise your right hand under Title 10, Section 502. And you took an oath to do what? Support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic wasn't put into that oath until 1862, by the way. And it had nothing to do with Iraq, Afghanistan, nothing like that. It was talking about an extra oath. It was an ironclad oath, meaning an extra oath that you would protect this nation against enemies of the Republic. And then it goes on to say, according to what? According to the what? Regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And if you're National Guard, you raise your right hand under Title 32, but guess what? Your oath still says the same thing. So you can't have one portion of military justice without the other. So let's read what the Uniform Code of Military Justice says about civilians in military courts. Number 10, under Article 2 of so it's Section 802 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is Article 2. Bullet point 10, in the time of declared war or contingency operation. What was just signed? What was just signed during the government shutdown, you freaking morons? What was just signed? Oh, a contingency operation plan to pay the military. Oh, we wouldn't need a contingency operation if the government wasn't shut down. We wouldn't need a contingency operation if we weren't in a continuity government. We wouldn't need any of this. All you continuity experts out there who said Derek Jonhson don't know what he's talking about, you never show how I don't know, because I do know what I'm talking about. I have the books about it. In a time of declared war or contingency operations, persons serving with or accompanying an armed force in the field. Well, that's Hillary. That's Obama. That's Biden when he was vice president, because they all did what? They gave military orders to kill who? Gaddafi. Bin Laden. Supreme Court docket 23-939 ties in murder to Obama, which would be Hillary and Joe Biden as vice president. Bullet point 11, subject to any treaty or agreement to which the United States is or may be a party, or to any anticipated rule of international law, persons serving with, employed by, or accompanying the armed forces outside the United States and outside the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. Hello, Gaddafi, Libya, Benghazi. Hello, Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Subject to any treaty or agreement to which the United States is or may be a party, or to any accepted rule of international law, persons within an area leased by or otherwise reserved or acquired for the use of the United States, which is under the control of the Secretary concerned, and which is outside the United States and outside the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. Ooh, the Secretary concerned. So that's why President Donald John Trump wrote Executive Order 13919. That was a direct order to the Secretary of then Defense, now the Secretary of War, giving him a direct order, equal federalization powers. With Executive Order 13919, April the 30th, 2020. So they did what? They made, quote-unquote, Joe a puppet government. They made it a shadow government. They did this strategically, which is irregular and unconventional warfare. But there were certain people that were still on the lower levels getting to do what? Operate freely, because we were doing what? Strategically trapping them. Sting operation. Because the Secretary of War has been equally federalized with the president. Here's how you prove it. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Go to the bottom, the executive document. Why would, quote-unquote, Joe relinquish his authority to the Secretary? What did it just say? What did it just say? For the use of the United States, which is under the control of the Secretary concerned. An executive document under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, put there, this entry, 1550, was put there December the 20th, 2019. What does this Uniform Code of Military Justice say right here? JSC.defense.gov, December the 20th, 2019. Why was, quote-unquote, Joe relinquishing his authority to the Secretary of War? That's exactly what it reads if you go read it. I hereby delegate the authority and functions vested in the President of 1550 to the Secretary of Defense, which is now the Secretary of War. I'm telling you what, morons, you don't want none of this. You don't want to keep peeping your heads up because you're looking like an enemy. If you're just a moron, you don't want to look like an enemy, because we're going to come after you too, and we're going to get you. We're going to get you. And I will have someone at your door, authority, and we will get you. Now, let's get back to my notes really quick. Moving to the next bullet point, this all ties in. This is why President Trump put a protection order around certain judges, law enforcement, and prosecutors. He put a protection order, Executive Order 13977, on January the 18th, 2021, right before the world thought they saw, quote-unquote, Joe be inaugurated, he wasn't. 3 cannons at Arlington is not a 21-gun salute. So not all those who wear the badge, not all those who wear the garment, the military, law enforcement, the judge, the cape, except not all those who wear capes are who they say they are. But the ones who are going to do what? Do everything by humanitarian letters of the laws and the orders that will do what? Protect Americans. All these people out there who are saying this is hogwash, they have some agenda under their belt. They have some agenda that they're trying to achieve and they're trying to accomplish. And the ones that are just straight up morons, they're just looking for you to pay them, buy them a coffee or some stupid crap like that. They should be detained. But that's why right now, what you're witnessing right now as we speak, November the 16th, what's been happening since January the 20th, 2025 to present day, it's been judge this, judge that. Judge said this, judge did this. Judge blocked this, judge blocked that. Judge this, judge that. Judge this, judge that. Judge, judge, judge. Appeals court this, appeals court that. Fourth Circuit this, Fifth Circuit that. Sixth Circuit this, Seventh Circuit that. It's been nothing but judge and courts. And the people who claim these are conspiracy theories and all, they can't see what's going on, or the people who are, I don't see anything, nothing's happening, y'all just keep saying that. You can't see it because you don't know what the trees look like. You can't see the forest for the trees because you don't know what the tree looks like. You don't even know the simple three branches of government. You can't even name them. 68% of America just cannot say the three words, much less tell who they are, what they do, how they function, how they operate, indirectly and directly. So therefore, you're not going to be able to see these things because you base your intelligence and your knowledge off of what you think is your intelligence and knowledge. Not the dash, not the visual, which has a blueprint. That's why these books are #1 bestsellers. That's why they're #1 bestsellers. This one, part 1 and part 2. Now, while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and show the new book that just finally got delivered to me so I can start putting these out tomorrow, distributing them out to the people who have purchased. All right, the Midnight Rider Bible. All right, this is what I was asked to write a long time ago, and I just now got around to doing it. It's 573 pages. All right. No pictures, all text. All right, and I'll just read off a few of the table of contents. The Revolutionary War, Military Establishment, Common Sense by Thomas Paine, Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Treaty of Paris, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, March 4, 1789. The Bill of Rights, Marlborough versus Madison, 1803, Insurrection Act, 1807, War of 1812, Articles 1, 2, and 3. 4 ways of military affairs, Statute of 1845, which is when, where, and how we vote. All right, ratification process, National Security Act of 1947, Department of War, NDAA, White House Military Office, Emergency Alert System, Order of Successions, Executive Departments, NARA, Presidential Records Act, 20th Amendment, Title 10, Title 32, Title 50, Title 10 versus Title 50, War Powers Act of 73, Law War Manual, National Security Strategy, National Defense Strategy, National Military Strategy, Courts Martial, Military Tribunal, Tribunal versus Courts Martial, DOD-Ds and DOD-Is, Military Justice Act 2016, Writ of Habeas Corpus, 1798, Aliens and Sedition Acts, Martial Law, Posse Comitatus Act, Joint Publication 3-57, Ironclad Oath, Article 4, Section 4, Federalist Paper number 10, number 14, Types of Warfare, Irregular Warfare, Special Operations, Unconventional Warfare, Oaths, all the oaths since 1789, 20th Amendment, 22nd Amendment, Title 47, Section 606, and the Gettysburg Address. All right, those are all your key core foundations of our nation. If you don't know any of them, you're going to be lost. You see how many of those there are? You see your key core foundations are 573 pages long? You think people are going to know what's been taking place lawfully? No. So don't worry about people out there who are doing this. And this is why you have the power to control your mind and your emotions and your feelings. You have that power. Unfollow these morons. Do not comment, do not like, do not share. Unfollow them. That is how the algorithm works. That is how social media works. Leave these pages. Fox News, OAN, Newsmax. They're all just an hour of a segment. They just give you just a little bit. And you're not going and looking up the laws and orders. Everything that I outline is 45-47. 2017 to 2021 was the resetting of the legislative branch. That's why all these unique laws and orders were put into place. Everything that's operating right now to this day, we're going to get there, but I'm going to go ahead and touch on some of them. Like Venezuela, Executive Order 13773, 2017. All of your pharmaceuticals, the big farm that President Trump's been hammering, 2017. All these executive orders and all these unique executive orders made it, and national emergencies, made it through 2021 to 2025. How did they all make it through? If President Trump is a threat to democracy, which we're not a democracy, but for the people who hear that don't know the difference, how is President Trump a threat to democracy, a threat to the Constitution, a dictator, a king, a fascist, a communist, a Nazi, and all these things they charge of him and sell of him? How's he all these things if they did not terminate one single military order, a Title 10 or a Title 32, also executive orders with national emergencies and executive orders without national emergencies? How come they're all still open, invoked, active? They just handed it right back to him January the 20th, 2025 with a big red bow on it. Here you go, President Trump. Here's all your Title 10 military orders, Title 32 National Guard orders, and your reserve component. Here they are. Here's everything right here. Oh, and by the way, we're going to call you a fascist and a communist and a pedophile. We're going to call you all these names. But the people over here, they don't know that we continued all your military orders and all your executive orders for national emergencies that all come with 120 statutory powers each national emergency. They don't know this. Because that's what it sounds like. That's what it is. That's how dumb people look when they say it's hogwash, conspiracy. Oh, he's just dragging this out. He's just saying. This is how the laws and orders work. When they call you a liar, you can be 100% wrong about something, but it don't make you a liar. That's how you know they're a moron or they're deep state or both. 2021 to 2025 was the resetting of the executive branch. So I'm going to go over that just a little bit and dab on that just a little. All right. For the sake of. President Trump, Section 1550, the National Defense Authorization Act 2020, was put temporarily in the War Powers Resolution Act, temporarily. And it tells you that in there. If you'll go read it, you got to go read and know what you're reading. But it says it's in here, it's temporary, meaning it's not for future presidents to use Section 1550, which means it's a what? Strategic operation. It's a special and strategic operation. Because then when you piece all the laws and the orders around that Section 1550, you go, man, that's the National Guard, that's the Venezuela, that's the tariffs, that's the this, that's everything you're watching. They're all invoked under that Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. So when you heard President Trump recently, just a week ago, say, I don't need to declare a war for the Venezuelan operation, you know why you don't need to? Because it was already declared by Congress way back with Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. That entry into Title 50 is your Congress and your Secretary of War. That's your Title 50, which is War and National Defense. President Trump's orders came in with the Title 10 and the Title 32 orders. That's the executive department. That's your executive branch. That's your executive. That's your commander-in-chief, your chief executive officer. That's how this works. So, way back, I'm going to have to touch on it right now. I wanted to save it to later, but I'm going to have to touch on it right now. Way back on January the 17th. January the 17th. What a day. What a day in history. It was January the 17th, 1961, that President Eisenhower and former five-star general gave his speech on the military-industrial complex, and he also didn't like where medical was going. January the 17th, 1961. January the 17th, 2017, Federal Continuity Directive was put out. It was reissued. It was upgraded and updated. Federal Continuity Directive 1. Also on the same day, the military put out Joint Operation 3.0. Joint operations. You hear what we're saying here? Joint operations. June the 13th, Federal Continuity Directive 2 was issued. That's your implementation portion of your continuity government and continuity of operations. June the 16th, 2017, 3 days later, Joint Planning 5.0. Joint planning of your military operation was put out. Under those continuity directives, there were other directives that were put out along the way. January the 1st, 2021. So look what had just taken place. Look what had just taken place. In the first 180 days, in the clause of 1550, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, in the first 180 days, President Trump federalized up to 1 million reserve components with Executive Order 13912, March 27, 2020. April the 1st, which we're going to get to in a minute, hold that thought on April the 1st, but then April the 30th, President Trump gave equal authority to the Secretary of War now, then was the Secretary of Defense, equal authority to federalize selective reserves. So both of those executive orders, 13912 and 13919, invoke Title 10, Sections 12302 and 12304. Ladies and gentlemen, Title 10, 12304 requires 2 years in advance notification for funding. Do your math. In the second 180 days, Abraham Accords. Woo! Invocation of Continuity Government. Executive Order 13961 on December the 7th, 2020. 3 days later, Executive Order 13963, the most recent, to this date, November the 16th, 2025, the most recent order of succession within the Department of War. Which means whose name is on that order of succession? President Donald John Trump. Old Biden not once had one single order of succession with any military domain. Explain that. Oh, I can, but the morons can't. December the 14th, President Donald John Trump, via the United States Supreme Court, via the state of Texas, filed a lawsuit against 7 swing states. We're going to get to that in a minute as well. Fast forward, January the 1st, 2021. 17 days later, 18 if you want to count it another kind of way, that's fine. But 17 full days later, President Donald John Trump, on January the 1st, 2021, there was another FEMA document put out. FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. It was called Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. That right there was forecasting what you were about to witness from 2021 to 2025 with the government side of things and the Department of Homeland Security with your continuity of operations and your continuity of government. Your military portion was put into Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, and all these executive orders. Because that's how the military pairs with federal. 4 ways. Executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. There's only 4 ways that military pairs with the federal government. And those are your 4. So there are 2 things going on at one time. Contingency operations. It's all there. Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Geneva Conventions, etc. Law of War Manual, etc. So January the 1st, this document put out for the whole world to know about, but see, people don't know about it because they can't even name the 3 branches of government. Therefore, tying all these pieces together requires typically a woman or an expert in this field and matter. A reconstitution means it's taking something from its state, what it's in, and putting it back into its original state. Well, there you go, morons. You whine and complain about how the government hadn't done this and hadn't done that, but you can't even identify how you put it back into what it's supposed to do. That's what a reconstitution is. So see, all that Executive Order 13977, the protection of judges, law enforcement, and prosecutors, are the ones who are doing the right thing. The ones who know the law, abide by the law, but not doing what? Using the law to benefit them and their cronies. They're doing it as the law is supposed to read. From a neutral, both sides of the aisle, neutral. Do you ever notice how I don't tell you how to live your life? Do you ever notice how I don't tell you who you can love, who you can like, what you should do, what you shouldn't do? You ever notice that? No, I don't do that, do I? You know why? I have so many people who follow me who are gay, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, purple hair, pink hair, this kind of hair. I mean, I have people from all over the world who follow me because I don't ever tell you how to live your life. I tell you how we all can live and let live and pull our weight lawfully without infringing on everybody else. It's between you and God, or you and your maker, or you and your spiritual, whatever you believe. That's between you and them. There is a way to live and let live, but also there's a way to not have perversion. Absolutely don't believe in perversion. Absolutely don't believe in any kind of trans this and trans that. I absolutely don't believe in certain things either, just like a lot of you do. But there's a way to live and let live without having perversion, without having that enter the schoolhouses or anywhere else for that matter. There's a way to do that. The first things first is you got to know who you are and what you're fighting for. Who you are, meaning the United States of America, our history, our origin, our foundation. You got to know that first, or you're not going to be able to understand how the commander's working, how the military thinks, how the admirals and generals think, because it's a level up here. It's a broad picture. Our founders made the Constitution broad for a reason. It was never supposed to include our personal lives, marriage and religion and all these things. It was never supposed to do that. Ever. So while we're on the judges, I'm going to talk about this subject matter while we're on the judges, and then we'll move on. While we're on the judges, you see all these liberals out there. They call President Trump a pedophile, and all these things, right? Oh, what did those Epstein documents say? Oh, whatever's in them, they got to be bad because MTG is saying this and all that. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene is nothing but swamp. And a lot of you Republicans and a lot of you conservatives and a lot of you patriots, you have no idea who's good, who's bad, who's central casting good, central casting bad. You have no idea. You have your feelings and you want someone to be bad because you want them to be bad. You have people who you want to be good because you want them to be good. You don't want to listen to a bunch of ranks who are teaching you how to live every day and go by what you can know versus what you think you want to know versus what you think you want to happen. That's not how the military is operating at certain levels. The ones who know are all up here. And the way you know to trust them and to believe in them and have faith in them is to know what I'm showing you. Your foundation, your operations and functions of basic, simple government and also basic, simple military first. Then build your way up. Then work your way up. But so many of you, you can't handle it when something happens because you built that up. You made them guilty. You made them also innocent because you don't seek to study to know what the military is operating with. There is so much disrespect still to this day. I'll have people messaging me, you know more than me, you know more than the president, you know more than the generals. Well, then get the hell up there. Why aren't you doing anything about it? You're not doing anything about it. You're in my inbox, and if you're in my inbox saying that mess, you ain't who you think you are. All right? You in my inbox because you can't get any bigger than me. You can't get any higher up than me. So chill out, Nancy. Chill out, Karen. Sit back and know what you're supposed to know and know what you can know. That's how you find calmness, peace, and that's how you know what the commanders are working with. I've been teaching people around me too, even my friends and my base, again, my team, etc. Who gave Congress the power? Who gave police the power, law enforcement? Who put these people up here? We do that. Yes, they can go awry. They have gone awry, especially Congress all these years. Yes, because we give them the range. We let them freely roam in range. So guess what? 99% of Americans are guilty for what? Letting Congress get to this place in history. Because you don't know the simplicities of government, so therefore you don't know how to hold them accountable because you don't even know the accountability plan. You don't know simple laws and simple orders. But you can whine and you can gripe and you can fuss, but it ain't going anywhere. It's falling on deaf ears. And that's why we have this operation. That's why we're here. And Americans, y'all love you some drama. Y'all love you the heck out of some drama and propaganda. It's all you do. I think some of you just live to whine, live to complain, and live to gripe. Some of you just can't be happy. Some of you can't be content. Some of you can't find the joy in your life. Because I love what I do. Oh, I love this. I love that the good Lord called me right here. I love the opportunity that I was given. I don't care if it's just this level for the rest of my life. I love it. I am grateful for it. I'm thankful for it. Thank you, Lord. I love pooping in people's Wheaties. I love just making their coffee taste like doo-doo if they're going to be negative, if they think they know more than the commanders and the generals and the admirals. I love that. I love being not compromised, not bought, no endorsements, all me, myself, and I, an old 1913 closed-in fireplace. I love it, man. I live for this. I love this. But some Americans just love some drama. And you can't apply common sense. Just like Epstein. Oh, some of you Republicans, you holier-than-thou Republicans, you holier-than-thou conservatives, you holier-than-thou, y'all are bigger and better than Billy Graham ever thought about being. You a saint when you're talking about someone else's sins. Oh, what did I just say? Yeah, you're a saint when you're talking about everybody else. But when you get and stand in front of that mirror, that's why a lot of you don't look in the mirror. Because you know your ass is guilty. And you know you're probably worse off than most people out there. Because we're what? We're sinners. We're saved by grace. Saved by grace happens every day. All right, therefore, what we do and our mistakes, especially the low ones, so what? You said an F word, or you said this, or you slipped up, you raised your voice, you got mad, and you cussed your neighbor out. Okay, we'll get over it. We'll move on. That's life. It happens, right? We have punishment levels, though, if you do something stupid. If you do something higher crime than that. Yeah, you be forgiven, but there's punishment levels, right? We have that for a reason. But most Americans, you don't do crime. You're not punching your neighbor, all right? You're not doing certain things. But boy, you will hang it over them, oh my Lanta. You will hang stuff over them. One bad little thing and they have a bad life. One little F-bomb and oh, they ain't going to heaven. They ain't going to heaven. You made one person, but if they do it to you, hell hath no fury. Hell hath no fury if it happens to you. If it was your child or your mama, your dad, hell hath no fury. See, everybody's a saint when they're talking about someone else's sins. Now, we can be honest. We can look and say, you know what? My parents used to tell me, if you're at a party, then perception is what? You're at this party and the party gets busted and you're at the party, then perception may not be good. You may not have picked up a drink, you may not have picked up a smoke, you may not have done a thing, but your perception at this party made you look guilty until you do what? Prove your innocence. So you may have to go through some bull crap out there in the world because the holier-than-thous are going to eat you up like a bunch of piranhas. They're going to be like them fat folks eating my Krispy Kreme donuts in front of a Weight Watchers event. Oh boy, whoop, piranhas attack, right? So you're going to have to go through something. We can all be honest that President Trump, right, he was around people that by the luck of the draw went and did something they shouldn't have done or looked a certain way. But it can happen to anybody. Every single one of you have been around somebody in your lifetime that got a DUI that they're not proud of, all right, may have gone to jail for stealing or some kind of something or other. Every single one of us knows somebody to some extent that something happened to them where they had to face punishment for it and or humiliation. But it don't mean that you write their whole life off. It depends on what they did. If it was murder, malicious murder, okay. Then you can whatever. But some people even find forgiveness through that as well. All right? Let people find that on their own. All right? You stay in your lane. You do your thing. But look at President Trump and this Epstein thing. You got all these libtards out there and some Republicans going, oh, I did vote for President Trump, but now I want him impeached. You're a rhino. You're a never-Trumper. Your true colors are coming out. Thank you for showing your ignorant face. Thank you for showing you know nothing about laws and orders. Thank you for showing you know nothing about 45-47. Thank you for showing you know nothing about the military. Thank you for disrespecting the military. No appreciation for the military. Thank you. Good. Round of applause for you morons out there. That's what you're doing. There's an operation taking place. A massive operation. All laws and orders. Now, you don't have to like the laws. You don't have to like the orders. That's your opinion. But your opinion is what? Don't matter. Because we're in control. Good guys are in control. You'll get over it. That's what's going to happen. You're going to get over it, and it's going to benefit you. Just like the Revolutionary War. 1.7% fought the whole 9 years on average. And guess who got over it? The other 98.3. They got over it. All right? And they lived what? Under a great thing that our founders established. But even they didn't live to be old men, some of them. They were brutally murdered or killed and other things like that. This is always going to be a fight. We're in a better position now than our founders were even. Even back then, there were still morons. There were still people who wanted to destroy something good, something for humanity, something for everybody to benefit from. So that's why you have to punch some people in the mouth. You have to kick them in the teeth. Sometimes you have to. It's just part of war. It's part of it. So you have to be able to identify where we are, what we're in. And all this Epstein stuff is so easy if you will divorce your feelings and divorce your emotions and divorce that drama side and the propaganda. The libtards out there holding up signs, release the files. 3, 3. 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres. 3 Obama and Clinton appointed judges are the ones who blocked President Trump from releasing grand jury documents. How hard is this to comprehend? 3 Obama and Clinton appointed judges blocked President Trump from releasing grand jury documents. He's already released with the Republican House Oversight Committee. That was President Trump's Republican House Oversight Committee. That's President Trump's house who did that. So this recent uproar of the female who committed suicide, God rest her soul, right? Who already has a name. Her story's already been out there. She already said that President Trump didn't do a thing, all right? They didn't even use her name this whole past week. Her name's already public. 3 Obama and Clinton appointed judges. This is so easy. You know when Jeffrey Epstein's first run-in with the law was? 2005. 2005. So we went from 2005 to 2016. No one from the swamp did anything. 2005, people. How old were you in 2005? A lot of you looked a whole lot better back then. I can dang sure that. Some of your skin wasn't sagging as much. Some of them boobies were a little higher up. Some of their face was a little bit higher up, right? Some of y'all looked a lot better. Some of y'all y'all done aged a lot since 2005, haven't you? Yeah. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's have some fun here. 2005 to 2016, not anybody from the swamp. No one did a thing. Then from 2021 to 2025, when the whole world, the average world, thought that quote-unquote Joe was president, okay, let's play devil's advocate for a moment for the slow ones out there, the laggards and the morons and all of them, they're all in the same category. If President Trump is a king, a dictator, a Nazi, a communist, a threat, then how come not one single moron from that side didn't say, hey, we can't let him get back in. He's already wearing a dash on his ball cap. He put this dash and this 47 on his ball cap a year and 7 months before. He's already saying he's going to be 47. We need to do something. How come nobody did anything? Maybe because the military's been in control. Maybe because, I've had documents out since January 2021 that says military's in control. Maybe because I signed my contract a month before President Trump put that dash on his ball cap. My contract that contracted me to write these books that are #1 bestsellers, that summarized the plan. They simplified as best as possible. It is a lot of information, absolutely. But it's a lot for a reason. If cleaning out Washington, D.C. and doing things your way was as easy as some of you make it, well, you could have done this years ago. Why didn't you do it? Where were you then? Why weren't you whining and complaining then? Most of the whiners and complainers had no idea of anything. You didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. You didn't know who any of these people were. You didn't know it until someone told you to care. President Trump keeps saying all roads lead to Obama. He talked about Jack Smith. There's Supreme Court dockets with President Trump versus Jack Smith. President Trump said way back that Jack Smith was not confirmed by the Senate. No crap, Sherlock. Now, President Donald John Trump knows I'm not being disrespectful to him. But for you out there, no crap, Sherlock. No crap they weren't confirmed by the Senate. No crap. Because we're in a continuity government, a pre-planned. The whole thing is pre-planned, meaning the whole thing was designed back here. Before 45 ever started, there was a strategic blueprint, special operation, all these plans. That's why so many people are struggling, because everything you're watching is not real time. Marjorie Taylor Greene and all that, it's all pre-planned. Central casting, good. Central casting, bad. Drain that swamp. Every one of you chanted, drain that swamp. Drain that swamp. Drain that. You're watching the swamp be drained and you don't even recognize it, some of you. Why'd you chant something if you don't want to be open to seeing what it looks like being drained? Because it ain't being drained the way you think it should be drained, or in the mindset of the eyes, or whatever it is that you think. It's because you can't even name the 3 branches of government. You can't even say legislative, executive, and judicial. Highly recommend. It's not that long. Highly recommend. The Art of War. It's not that long. Sun Tzu. And guess who was quoted in Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide? It's not that long. President Trump said not long ago, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. So take the word cure out. Let's put in the term resolution. the resolution, or you can put solve in, or whatever, you can put a lot of words in there. The resolution cannot be bigger than the problem. Make sense? Should make sense. Highly recommend. All right. President Trump revoked all these security clearances. The ones on social media that you think are real, they're not. They're all being controlled, every aspect of it. But the ones that you think, like Adam Kissinger and all these people, all these security clearances were revoked. Of course they're going to talk trash if they were real. Even if they were in control of their own social media, of course they're going to talk trash because their security clearances were revoked. You know what a security clearance has to go through before it's actually revoked? A what? Investigation. So either you believe and trust President Donald John Trump or you don't. But if you claim that you do, you shouldn't be complaining. You should know what's going on because he shows you what's going on. You have no excuses. All right? You either trust him or you don't. But if you trust him, you probably need to know his plan because there is one. There's a blueprint. And all these security clearances got revoked. Well, it's all been pre-planned. It didn't happen when they were revoked, but it's pre-planned. Every aspect of it. All right, now that you know that 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch, 2021 to 2025 was a resetting of the executive, 2025 to present day is a resetting of the judicial, let's look at a few things from the 2017 to 2021 that's taking place right now. This is what's so awesome if you stop and rewatch this video over and over and over again. What's taking place right now in November 2025, every aspect of it, the legislation was put in from 2017 to 2021. The tariffs, all right, the tariffs were put into place in 2018. Now, tariffs are presidential authority. You might want to go look up the trade acts of 1962 and 1974. Some of you were born back then. That's how old these are. This didn't just happen under President Trump. So if the libtards and the Democrats, all right, the dumbos out there, if they didn't want any of these invoked and enforced, then why are they still in law? Every single law that President Trump is working with was in law long before 2016. It's that easy. It's that simple. The tariffs were put into place in 2018. President Trump told everybody on the debate with quote-unquote Joe, did you notice they didn't take out my tariffs? Because they can't. But see, they put a run-on sentence on there on purpose because people don't hear the law in sentence. People just hear drama or what they want to hear. You heard immediately after that, they can't because they bring in too much money. No, that's not a reason why a president could or couldn't revoke or terminate or rescind a tariff or any other thing for that matter. That's not the reason. That would be an incentive, but that's not a reason. You got to stop that there. That's why people can't put this together because you're not listening to what you need to listen to. You hear all kinds of things, you don't listen. All right? He said he can't take out my tariffs because, stop right there. Has nothing to do. Money coming in, has nothing to do why a president can and can't. Law is why a president can and can't. If Joe Biden was president, he'd have had the same power and authority as every other president. He would have had the same power. A tariff in a national emergency, ladies and gentlemen, regulating commerce is an emergency power by the president. It is one of those 120 statutory powers that comes with one declaration of a national emergency. Every national emergency has 120. Now, they're the same powers, but every national emergency. So even if President Trump, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, even if President Trump would have never invoked a national emergency via an executive order and or verbal national emergency, guess what? There were 25 open from 1979 to 2016. He would have never had to issue one executive order or national emergency in it, or national emergency by itself, because there are already 25 open with the same 120 statutory powers. That's why Democrats, and libtards look atrocious, stupid, idiot, moronic, and enemies of the Republic. You Republicans and conservatives and patriots, you don't want to look like them. President Trump would have not ever had to issue one executive order with a national emergency or a verbal national emergency, and there are already 25 open that President Trump could use those same powers to enforce, which is also simultaneously exposing the swamp as well. They were already exposed if you know what you're looking at and know what's going on and didn't know what was going on. But this simultaneously exposes that they continue these executive orders and national emergencies for their residuals, their benefits, the swamp, Republican and Democrat, for them. They had all these executive orders with national emergencies open from 79 to 2016. They kept just passing the president, Congress. They never had intentions to terminate them because that's how they were making their money. That's how they were keeping their regime going. That's how they established all these regimes. Like Venezuela is an illegitimate regime. All right? Same thing with certain things in Iraq and Afghanistan, Ukraine, etc. Then, from 2021 to 2025, quote-unquote, Joe and the Hoettes, and all, for the people who thought that was real, that's your humor for you. None of it was real. It was all a puppet government, all unconventional warfare, all part of the pre-planned 45-47 strategic and special operation. Every aspect of it was a puppet government in exile by President Trump, who just validated me again for the umpteenth time, even though it's not about me personally, but because I am the one with the #1 best-selling books, because I'm the only one with the books, I'm the only books out there that show the 45-47, and will only be because of intellectual property, because I put so much into them, all right? No one can ride around them because it's intellectual property, all right? Well, President Trump just validated me again a month ago with the Turkish president when he said, while I was in exile, he remained my friend. While I was in exile, he remained my friend. I've got to pause on Instagram for a moment. Hold on real quick. I'm over the target. It says it's reconnecting. And I want that to last, so let's see if it'll come back. May not. Boy, they love to play with this thing. It says pause due to connection. It paused on Instagram. It's back now. I have Starlink. That shows you that they're messing with it. I'm way over the target. That's them warning me. I know. All right, let's pull it back a little bit. I'll divert, but this is all factual. From 2021 to 2025, Joe, the quote-unquote Congress, we won't use slang language again, all right? Not one single tariff was terminated from 2021 to 2025. So how is President Trump a threat, a dictator, a king, a communist, a Nazi, and all these things? Why didn't they terminate his tariffs? That's what all your articles read right now. Every article reads that tariffs are bad for the economy. They're adding this to your paycheck. They're not good for you, and you're going to pay for it. Well, that's the same thing that quote-unquote Joe and all these people said. Even though I know it's an act, but for the people who don't. So if you got the quote-unquote Joe and all of them saying what the articles are saying, who are all captured and controlled via restricting telecommunications, that's also strategic. We're going to get to that in a minute. All right, the next topic. Then why didn't they terminate the tariffs? Not one single Obama, Clinton, or Bush 1 or Bush 2 appointed judge tried to block a tariff from 2021 to 2025. And not that Congress matters because tariffs are presidential, but just because. From 2021 to 2023, they displayed to the average folks out there who think military laws, military orders, military strategies, military tactics, military regulations, military customs are conspiracy theories. They showed to them that Congress was a Democrat House and Democrat Senate with a quote-unquote Democrat president. All Democrat control from 2021 to 2023, and they couldn't terminate one single Title 10 military order by the president before them. One Title 32, federalization. They continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies by President Donald John Trump that are deporting the migrants, taking back the Panama Canal, funding Doge, enforcing Doge, restricting and terminating mainstream media. Wow. Election interference. So quote unquote Joe and they continued all these executive orders with national emergencies that are contributing to the deportations. Those, the termination of federal departments and federal everything. Terminating mainstream media. Now you hear, as we move to the next topic, President Trump is suing BBC. Why are they mad at President Trump suing BBC? Quote-unquote Joe continued executive orders that contribute to the termination of mainstream media. I mean, you can't get any more humorous than this. CNN was hammered by President Trump early. ABC, The View right now, The View are under investigation. Nobody shared the heck out. That should have been the most shared post I had. No one shared it. The View's being investigated right now. The Associated Press is full confirmation. President Trump shared twice that the Associated Press has been banned from the White House in Mar-a-Lago. The only way you can ban them is an emergency power. Oh, remember those morons who said civilians can't be tried in a military court, and then you heard the thing called contingency operation, which is under a continuity government, which is talking about occupied territory, the occupied country that President Trump uses, which is all law war manual terms. Well, guess what else the president has in the emergency powers? Restricting telecommunications. Well, guess what that is? 47 United States Code, Section 606. War powers of the president. He can terminate, ban, restrict, do whatever they want with mainstream media, broadcast via internet, TV, and radio. That's the Telecommunications Act of 1996. All these laws have been in law for years. And yes, via the 1798 Aliens Act, it's not just for deportation of migrants. The Aliens Act also had a Seditions Act attached to it. All right, it expired back then because it's an act that's only used during a wartime. It didn't expire meaning it was abolished from law. It expired because they didn't need it anymore active. But if you look at the application of the Seditions Act, you've seen exactly what's going on right now with all these mainstream media, what happened back in the day. Even civilians can be punished for putting out false information of the military and the government. So keep it up. Keep saying I'm a grifter. Keep saying I'm a liar. Keep saying that. Keep on. You're not going to have social media long. They're going to get control of all this. They're working on all that. People are being terminated left and right. All right, you're not going to be able to say what you want to say just because you think it's your First Amendment. When you are blatantly lying yourself, when you're blatantly misleading people, falsely, and you're making things up, which is defamation, slander, libel, etc., when you're trying to frame people and all these other things that people are doing out there, you're not going to be able to get away with that. The Take It Down Act that President Trump talks about, you're not going to be able to get away with these things. All right? And then the law is changing back to common law, so whenever you get sued and you go into a court of law and all the evidence is shown against you, you're going to lose your rear end. That's what's going to happen. Because the law don't play. The law don't work like that. The law ain't going to go in there and slap you on the wrist. That's why restricting telecommunications matters. It's an emergency power. One of those 120 statutory powers that comes with a national emergency. So see, even the swamp, in another way, they trapped themselves, because even if President Trump would have never established an executive order with a national emergency again, and or a national emergency verbal, the swamp had 25 open that was handed right to President Trump January the 20th, 2017. So see, quote unquote, Joe and all them, if they would have been real, guess what they should have been doing? Terminating the heck out of every executive order with a national emergency that was open. But see, that ain't what's been going on, because they weren't real. It was all an operation, all a puppet government, all in the law war manual. Every bit of President Trump's speeches back it up. Every bit of his speeches were proclamations. Every bit of them. When he said we've been invaded, that's a proclamation. We've been invaded. All right, that's what you need in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the Constitution for your writ of habeas corpus. It all ties in. You just got to know how to tie it all in. All right, now, remember when I said pause in the first 180 days, way back here, April the 1st, 2020? Look at all the liberals right now losing their minds over Operation Southern Spear. You know, they think the Venezuela thing just happened under President Trump. Do you know when Venezuela came into the picture? Smartmatic, Dominion, election interference, Executive Order 13848. Venezuela is an illegitimate government, illegitimate regime created by Obama and the cronies. All right. April the 1st, 2020, Southern Command launched the Enhanced Counter-Narcotics Operations, Executive Order 13773, which you'll find under the what? Department of what? Justice, for the Enhanced Counter-Narcotics Operation. April the 1st, 2020. Man, I froze again on Instagram. I mean, I'm so over the target right now, it's not even funny. I have Starlink, so no internet problems whatsoever. So I'm so over the target, because why can't people know about April the 1st and think that Operation Southern Spear is new? So hold on. Let's just see if Instagram comes back. Give me a moment here. There we go. We're back. I'm so over the target. It's so funny. April the 1st, 2020. 22 joint partners. And that ties in your Executive Order 13919. It also ties in when President Trump was sharing these photos and people said, what is this? I said, that's the Monroe Doctrine, 1823. And the Monroe Doctrine, 1823, the year 1823, right? The Monroe Doctrine talks about the Western Hemisphere. Right? How we reminded our European partners that keep your nose out of our Western Hemisphere. Right? Well, Executive Order 13919, remember the one I just talked about earlier that President Trump gave equal authority to the Secretary of War? Guess what it reads in that executive order? Which was, keep in mind, after the launching of the counter-narcotics operation with Venezuela. All right, way back April the 1st, 2020. What's it say? April 1st, 2020, 22 joint partners, Executive Order 13919, 29 days later, Executive Order says Enhanced counter-narcotics operations in the Western Hemisphere. It all ties in. Guess who launched the executive order for Venezuela? Osama Yo Mama Obama. 2015. Executive Order 13692 with a national emergency. So somebody needs to tell all the rhinos out there, and I won't name one particular one that I roast all the time on Instagram, who blocked me because they're a moron, a bimbo who needs to be out of what they're doing. All right. Someone needs to tell these people President Trump didn't start this stuff. He's finishing it. Now let's go to redistricting. You heard President Trump talk about Indiana. You hear Proposition California, yes on 50 and all this. And they said, oh, we're combating Texas and what President Trump's doing in Texas. California has nothing to do with Texas, ladies and gentlemen. And just like the host asked, quote unquote, Pelosi, well, why can't you just beat President Trump fair and square? Why do you have to redistrict California? Well, that's a distraction, one, in a lot of ways, because about 22 other states right now are redistricting, ladies and gentlemen. You got to go look this up, all right? But right now, President Trump's just posted today about Indiana redistricting, and he's calling out the governor and he's calling out the mayors, all right, how they're being defensive. All that is pre-planned draining of the swamp, all right? Every aspect is to follow the law as it is. Where we came up with this term swing state is the actual election rigging, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard it your whole life, every one of us. Before 2016, every election had this swing state. It was predetermined, it's going to come down to these 6 states. Ohio and West Virginia and so and this. How did they know that the election was going to come down? Kind of like gambling on sports, didn't it? How are all these gamblers so accurate on all these sports games? I mean, they're accurate how many pitches a pitcher's going to pitch, how many swings the batter's going to swing. I mean, we're talking about pretty corrupt, if you ask me. I mean, you can tell NFL and college football's rigged. Every bit of it's rigged. All right, it's so rigged it ain't even funny how rigged it is. So swing states were the rigging of the elections, and that is how they told you. They broadcast their corruption right in front of you, hidden in plain sight. They showed you, and that's what evil criminals do. And they got away with it for so long because you didn't even know that it was a predetermined. These 6 states are going to affect it right here. Well, if it was a Republican running for president of a certain person and they were leading the nation everywhere, then those 6 states did what? Or 7 states or 5 states, whatever it was throughout the years, what did they do? They made people go out and vote more in those states, right? Or could have been the opposite. Could have been every other state. Well, we got to vote. We got to make sure he gets in, right? Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency. President Donald John Trump, September the 12th, 2018, for election interference. Why did quote-unquote Joe, why did they continue an executive order that was going to damn his administration? If this is all real time and I'm full of crap and I'm full of hot, why would quote-unquote Joe continue an executive order with a national emergency that's going to damn his whole administration? President Trump filed via the state of Texas, remember, via the United States Supreme Court versus 7 swing states of 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, in your lifetime, you never saw one time the same 7 swing states or swing states period, whatever number it was in any election, the next election were not the same swing states. The swing states of 2024 were the same 7 swing states that President Donald John Trump filed through the United States Supreme Court via the great state of Texas, filed a lawsuit against. And he won every swing state and then some. It's all a pre-planned, strategic, special operation. The laws and the orders outline it. Because why, all of you veterans out there, there's a few of you, it's not a lot of you, but there's a few of you that have your heads up your rear ends, all right? You're looking for your brain, you're looking for your knowledge, you're looking mighty hard, all right? You're all DD-214, you're all, oh, I deployed here, and I deployed there, and I did this, and I did that. You're all that and no laws and orders. Why would, quote-unquote, Joe continue the federalization order from 2018 that put the National Guard cybersecurity teams at the election polls 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024? Did you not hear that correctly? The National Guard security, cybersecurity teams were all federalized under Title 32, which is a presidential federalization call-up by Donald John Trump in 2018. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue under President Trump, because it wasn't his order, it wasn't quote-unquote Biden's order, Title 32, presidential federalization, it was President Donald John Trump's in 2018, put there by Mad Dog Mattis. Why would the troops be at the election polls in 2022 and 2024 cohesive with 2018 and 2020? You're a moron if you can't understand that. And I'm not an a-hole, that hole, for telling you that. The truth hurts, and sometimes the truth knocks you upside the head. There is no reason. Title 18 is federal laws and criminal procedures, meaning this is how we prosecute people federally. If the troops, one soldier, two soldiers, 1,000, 10,000, doesn't matter the number. If a single troop, soldier, is at the election polls in uniform, not on official federalization orders, that is a violation of federal law, Title 18, Section 592. Go look it up. Because if someone like me and or other good veterans that know our laws and orders see someone in a uniform and they're not under federalization orders, we can say, hey, soldier, what you doing down here in your uniform? Who are you with? What unit are you with? If they are not with a national cybersecurity team, national command, cyber command, anything like that, they are violating federal law, Title 18, Section 592. And guess what we could do? Record them, then take that to their branch, take that to their commander, and say, what are you doing having a soldier down here? What's he doing down here? Trying to persuade people to vote? Trying to coerce people to vote, which is a federal law? This is why I say all the time, you can't just persuade people, coerce people. That's not what my job is. I'm showing you how President Donald John Trump is the face of this operation, and this operation is all lawful via the Uniform Code of Military Justice, via our foundations, origins, and history of military laws and federal laws, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. But my job is not to persuade you to vote for anybody. My job is to say, hey, here's how the law works. Here's how it works indirectly and directly. Here's how they coincide. Here's how they conjoin. Here's how they work together. So redistricting is all happens. It happens every 10 years after the what? Census, first off. So see, people don't even know the simple functions of how we operate. Statute of 1845, which is in the new book, when, where, and how we vote. Statute of 1845, the first Tuesday of the month of November. Woo! Pretty hard, ain't it? Redistricting happens every 10 years after the census. All right? And then also tying that in, again, President Donald John Trump was the only person with a presidential title. For all the people out there that think that Joe was real, he wasn't president. But for the people that thought that, the only person with a presidential title seen at the border of Texas in 2024 with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general of Texas was President Donald John Trump. You do not at ease a former commander. All right, you don't salute a former commander, especially a commander who wasn't in the military. All right, you don't do that. All right, and then the adjutant general is the one who gives it all away. The adjutant general reports to the state chief executive, the governor, unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10, which is presidential. 14 states deployed to Texas before, the week before, immediately before, and immediately after President Donald John Trump was seen at the border in Texas in 2024. That was a rank structure. That was a chain of command. President Trump told you we're in a war. It was a proclamation again. It was a time-stamped proclamation. If you can't believe that, then you are disrespectful to the military. You have no appreciation or respect for the United States military. That is straight up military law, military order, military strategy, military tactic, military regulations, and military customs. The other thing they didn't do was this. President Trump met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April to December 2024. That is a violation of the Logan Act, which is private correspondence with a foreign leader. Because to the world and to the average folks, President Trump's supposed to be a quote-unquote former president. So what's he doing meeting with 12 foreign leaders? Presidents and prime ministers? It's also a breach of national security. Both of those would have been. Texas and also meeting with foreign leaders would have been a breach of national security of a sitting president. If Joe would have been real or any other person would have been real, it would have been a breach of national security and a violation of Title 18 federal law again. And then also Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency invoked because it was election year. There's multiple laws that President Trump would have broken right in front of everyone if this was real time and he was a former president. He wasn't. All right, moving forward. National Guard in the cities. President Trump campaigned all through 2023 and 2024. First off, there's no such thing as a midterm rally. President Trump was out at rallies in 2021, 2022, and 2023. There's no such thing as a midterm rally. There's no such thing as that. This was all strategic, all visuals for you to know that there's a special operation going on. This is unique and different. I've never seen this before. Should have jogged your mind then and go, I've never seen a president get out on the road with his money in Trump Force One, flying all over, having these events and everywhere before election year. No such thing as a midterm rally. They put it right in front of you. All right. President Trump, though, in 2024 started heavily saying, we will be sending our National Guard into these cities. Whether the governor or the mayor ask for it. They're supposed to ask for it, but even if they don't ask for it, we're going to send our National Guard into these cities. President Trump is sitting there telling the whole world what he's going to do in the future. So why didn't, quote-unquote, Joe and the Hoettes and Congress and all these people that the average folks thought were real, why didn't they dump the Epstein files then? Why didn't they say, oh, President Trump, he's a former president. He's breaching national security. He's violating his own Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency. He's standing here. He's doing this. He's down there with the border. I'm supposed to be at the border. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be standing there. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to give that order. Why didn't they invoke all the Title 18's federal laws and prosecute President Trump, which would have been a quote-unquote former president? Why didn't they say, oh, he met with 12 foreign leaders 13 times at Trump Towers and Mar-a-Lago, which are private correspondence with foreign leaders right in front of every... They didn't do a thing, did they? And President Trump sitting there telling the whole world that I'm going to be sending the National Guard into every city, whether the governor or mayor asked for it or not. They're all Democrat infested, as he said. President Trump said these things over and over and over again. So if he was a dictator, a king, a threat, a fascist, a communist, a Nazi, and all these things that they charge of him, why didn't they try to stop the Daesh? Why didn't they stop 47? He was saying this in the Daesh. He said all these things in the Daesh. He met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times in the Daesh. He was in Texas in the Daesh. Every single thing operating right now to this date made it through 2021 to 2025 with a quote-unquote continuation by quote-unquote Joe. No wonder the morons out there who call people like me a liar and a grifter, no wonder they can't tell you how this ain't happening and how it's incorrect and how it don't mean this and it don't mean that. Because it most certainly does. And they're deep state and or they're a moron. And they need to be punched in the throat. They need to be kicked in the balls. They need to be beat down. They need to be detained, arrested, and put in jail because they're an enemy of the republic. That's what our founders did. Our founders kicked ass before they even had anything in paper. Our founders started a war before they even had a Declaration of Independence. Our founders started kicking ass before they had anything on paper, before they even had a Declaration of Independence. You hear what that says? Declaration, meaning we're going to declare our independence. They started a war before they declared anything. Then they signed the Declaration of Independence 7 years before the war ended. Do you know how badass that is? Do you not hear that? Can you not hear that? So all of you out there who are supporting pages that do nothing but lie to you, mislead you, ruffle your feathers, stir your emotions and your feelings and all these other things, they're not good for you. They don't have your best interests. Because I assure you right now, you can know everything that President Donald John Trump is working with. You can know everything. That's why I was put here, me, myself, and I, plus other people that I know. And I know a lot of your higher level special operators. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot. There's 60,000 secret military. And that's just a ballpark number. That's just secret military law. All right. There's people I know with Q clearances. Q is real. It's a clearance. It's way up here. Way high. All right. Then you have all layers of clearances. Then you have special operators, etc. There's all forms. All right. So just for the fun of it again, let's just roll through a few little things. How come these people call people like me a liar? All right. I'm a retired veteran. All right. Now, ladies know this more than anything. Ladies know that your man can be 100% wrong. 100% wrong, but it don't make you a liar. All right. The word liar is a strong word. It's very strong in its original context, in its original terminology. If someone calls you a liar and they don't have any proof that you actually lied, that's a strong, very strong accusation. All right? And if they're blatantly making up something, then they should be punched in the mouth. Some of them should. Honestly. Maybe fighting's not the answer to some of you, but I think it is sometimes. I think they ought to be knocked upside the head. All right? You can be 100% wrong but not be a liar. But I'm not wrong and I'm not incorrect for one reason. One, I don't make I never say, oh, this is going to happen at this date, and watch for this date, and watch for this. I get asked questions all the time. I'm like, you don't need to know that. You need to live today for today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's not here. Worry about today. All right. Now you can learn from the past, but there's certain things in the past you need to let go of. Some of you, in your personal life, and also in the bigger picture. All right. One bad day don't mean you got a bad life. All right. One bad mistake don't mean you're going to make them all. All right. You're human. First things first. All right. But these people who call people like me a liar and a grifter and I'm just dragging it out. What am I dragging out? See, everything I have, you can prove. Every single thing that I talk about, you can absolutely go to a law and an order, and it's there. And then you got to piece it together. If you don't want to buy these books that piece it all for you. Like these books right here have what I call a timeline in here. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Yeah, for example. See all those black bold? I put the dates. I put everything in an order. Now, if I put everything in here, you wouldn't read it because it would be as long as the book of How to Understand a Woman. All right, it would be 4 trillion pages long, and you'd never be able to piece it together because that's how women operate. You can't understand them. God made a woman, and He made her the way He made her. All right, they're 100% right all the time. Just got to learn that. All right. This bad boy here, same thing. It's got the timeline in here. All right. If you can't afford that, then that means you got to come to my pages and you got to piece it all together. But the best thing to do is now that we're 3.5 years into this, the best thing to do is watch the videos. And if you can't afford the book, then get you a notepad out and write all this down. And then, piece it together from 2015 to present day. All right, and you're going to have some subsidiaries. It's going to look like those old diagrams you had when we were in school. We had to break down a sentence, and it looked like a spaceship where you had the lines, and then you had the nouns and the verbs and the adverbs and the pronoun, all that stuff, Like, man, that part and how the libtards pick the pronouns out, and they only focus on the pronouns, how that happens is beyond me. So that's what you're going to have to do. Because I can assure you right now, anybody who's trying to mislead you from someone like me, distract you from someone like me, not tell you about someone like me, which I'm the only one with these books. But if someone's trying to deter you from that, then they have ulterior motives and intent for you. They're trying to mislead you for their own selfish gain. I don't have, again, monetization on my videos. Can't. And first off, if I wanted to, I can't. All right, Facebook blocked that a long time ago. All right. I don't have endorsements. All right. The only thing I have are books, CDs, because I was an artist. I had Billboard hits before. I heard a moron say one time that I did all this to boost my music career. If I could have made a video go viral in country music or a hit song, the money it requires to have one hit song, which is over $800,000 for one hit song, if I had that, I'm pretty sure I'd have done that. All right. Now, I'm happy where the good Lord put me, and I'm blessed, and I'm happy, content, joyful, and I love this. I love it. I love nothing more than coming to y'all every day with the facts, the evidence, and show how it pieces together. Here it is, .gov, .mil, indirect, direct. It said I love it. Wouldn't trade anything for it. Wouldn't take it back. I love exactly that because it allowed me also to write this book, #1 best-selling book. I'm the first country music artist and songwriter in country music history to unveil how the dirty, rigged system of country music works. I'd rather have that than a million #1 hits any given day in country music. So I'm happy. I love it. I love pooping in people's Wheaties. I love it. I love that they're mad and ruffled and they're trying to smear me and call me all kinds of names because they ain't got nothing. I have a clean record in military and civilian world. They out there, they got AI now. They'll try to say, oh, he was saying this and he says that. We're in the AI world now. They're making up stuff. Because I can tell you right now, my circle is small. Tiny, tiny, tiny. My team was with me before all this. My team was before military and the books. My team was with me in country music. So I can assure you right now, if back then I could have made it happen, I wouldn't be here right now. But that's not how the good Lord works. All right? And the good Lord's going to shine on all these people who are acting in darkness, all these people trying to mislead you and misguide you and lie to you and deceive you. The good Lord sees everything and He knows everything. All right? And I'm not one to take the Bible and beat anybody over the head with it. I beat my own self over the head with it. That's all that matters. So everyone who follows me, y'all know that. You know that good and well. That's why so many people all over the world follow, because I don't decide how you worship and who you like and who you love and anything like that. Right? I show you the way via .gov.mil, indirect, direct, how they can join, and what's going on with the dash. All right? But none of these people out there, even some of these podcasters, even some of these patrons, you don't see them saying, hey, you got to go check this book out. He's a retired veteran. This is a military operation, ladies and gentlemen. It requires military personnel first, not a bunch of civilians. Now, you're supposed to be fighting in your own right, but because this is a declared military operation, you should be listening to the military heavily that knows what's going on. God bless the veterans that don't know what's going on. Y'all need to step your game up, pick your game up, get your head in the right game, get your head in the right fight. It's already won. It's a pre-planned operation. However, where we got to fight is when it's over, we got to maintain and sustain this on the flip side. We got to educate and re-educate Americans, but especially that generation in the college years right now, they've got their heads in drinking, smoking, partying. They got their heads in college football, which is rigged, all these things that don't even matter. We got to get people to love things that matter first. And then we can have our freedoms more and more so. All right? Not all this topsy-turvy mess we've had that people call, quote-unquote, freedom the past 150 years. So how come none of these people out there, how come they can't explain why President Trump is using law war manual terms in regular press conferences? Why is he using occupied territory, white flag of surrender, capitulation, and puppet government? How come the mainstream media are using belligerent, white flag of surrender, capitulation, and puppet government? How come? Those are not government terms whatsoever. Not a single one of those terms are government. They're all law war manual. How come these morons out there can't explain any of this? How come they can't explain why the last order of succession within the Department of War is from December 2020? How come, quote-unquote, Joe couldn't have a single military domain in his own name in an order of succession? So if, quote-unquote, Joe would have, quote-unquote, died, because he wasn't real, that's what the quotes stand for, but if he would have died to the people who thought it was, not a single military order of succession was in his name, which means what? The order of successions were in President Trump's names. Pretty simple math here. It's West Virginia hillbilly math. All right. How come they don't explain how come there hadn't been a White House military office since 2021? On paper, it shows January 2022, but that's not the case. Because I happen to know somebody who worked for the puppet government, and guess what their email showed for quote-unquote Biden? Their name at Senate.gov. You know what President Trump's people's email said? At WhiteHouse.gov. So why were all of Biden's people using Senate.gov emails? Wasn't old quote-unquote Joe, wasn't he a senator at one point? I thought he was a vice president after that. Ooh. Does that not show the dash even more? I've got it on record that this dash started a little bit before, not the dash portion, but the strategic plan was a little bit before. I'm on record saying it. People thought I was crazy, but I'm on record saying this started way back 2011 and 12. When was Derek Jonhson in the military? Oh, that's a good one. How come they never explain why the first inauguration in United States history, and the only cannons shown for quote-unquote Joe were 3 cannons at Arlington, which is not a 21-gun salute. A year ago, there was a moron, claimed to have been in the military for 24 years, said that the cannons are always shown at Arlington. Not on TV. Not on January the 20th, they never have. See, sometimes jealousy and also a moron, you actually prove the point. Right? Because now you have a bookend, what I call a bookend. You have a this, you have a middle, and you have a that. All right, so from 1969 to 2017, you can go to YouTube and you can look up Inauguration Day. You'll see 4 cannons, 21 rounds fired with a commissioned officer present in the National Capital Region, which is not Arlington. All right, you'll see that for Richard Nixon all the way to President Trump. Then, this January 2025, guess what took place? They moved Arlington to January the 19th. The wreath laying ceremony was the 19th, not the 20th. So now you have an outlier even so. They put a visual on that, say, hey, they put a focus on it. Check this out. We're doing Arlington the day before, not after the president swears in and does the review of the troops, etc., etc. No, we put it on the 19th. Did they show you the cannons on the 19th at Arlington? Nope, sure didn't. Why didn't they show you the cannons at Arlington? Since the cannons are always shown at Arlington, why didn't they show them, you moron? This person had MAGA in their username. Typical person who shows that they're not actually MAGA. They're trying to deceive you out there. All right, so then using the fact that, 24 years in the military, well, you obviously blundered those 24 years because you just exposed yourself now that we have a bookend. President Trump on the 19th was at Arlington. No cannons were shown. So now we have an outlier. In statistics, ladies and gentlemen, they call this an outlier. Meaning, like if you go to a range and you shoot in a square, all right, and you hit the bullseye 9 out of 10 times, and you have this stray up here in the corner, that's called an outlier. One little stray. So then you want to do what? Even though 9 others are in the pocket, you got to go, how did that one get up here? What the heck did I do to do that? What happened? I got to study that one, even though the 9 are perfect, if you care. There you go. The outlier. Now in history, you have this outlier. The only cannon shown all day long for quote-unquote Joe were at Arlington National Cemetery. Nowhere before in history for any other president were the cannons shown at Arlington. They were shown in the National Capital Region. Go to arlingtonnationalcemetery.mil. The 3-volley salute is not to be confused with the 21-gun salute. The 21-gun salute, see, it's separating it. They're putting this aside. They're saying the 3-volley, meaning 3 cannons, right? 3 volleys. The 3-volley salute, and they tell you this, seen or heard at Arlington is a funeral service. Now, when you see an inauguration, the president will raise his right hand. He'll take the oath of office, and immediately after that oath, as you'll read in the book right here, immediately after that oath, you'll hear dun 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 dun, bum ba da lum bum bum, bum ba da lum bum bum, bum ba da lum bum bum. 4 ruffles. Hail to the Chief starts, and the 21 gun salute starts simultaneously after that fourth ruffle. 1969, 2017, 2025. Dum 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 bum 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 da 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 da. And the camera goes over to the National Capital Region and shows the 4 cannons, 21 rounds, commissioned officer present. Except for one quote-unquote inauguration in history now. January the 20th, 2021. When quote-unquote Joe raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which says the president's term shall end at noon. The successor shall then begin. If you go Google every one of those and say, what does shall then mean? Shall then begin. Go Google that line, and it'll tell you that every president has sworn in at 12:01 and 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because noon means afternoon, meaning after 12. Sucks to suck. 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Soon as the quote-unquote oath was administered, guess what didn't happen? No 21 gun salute. The cannons that were shown for quote-unquote Joe were when he was riding to the quote-unquote wreath laying ceremony. 3 cannons at Arlington is not a 21 gun salute. The same day, and the first time in United States election inauguration history, 2 sets of cannons were shown on Inauguration Day. 3 for quote-unquote Joe later on. 4 at Joint Base Andrews with President Donald John Trump, and the media told you this is the official presidential salute battery, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard, which is the oldest unit in the United States Army, 1784. And you people think they flubbed up that day? You have no respect or appreciation for the military if you think that. You have no respect or appreciation if you think that. There was 0 commissioned officer present for quote-unquote Joe. Army Regulations 600-25, 2-3 cannon salutes. There's to be a commissioned officer present at every cannon salute. I'm just telling you military regulations. You can't believe in the military code of Uniform Code of Military Justice if you don't. I mean, it's everything. I'm lost for words. I mean, you can't. There's nothing else to say. How come these morons never explained that President Trump was the recipient on January the 20th, 2025 of 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that are deporting the illegal migrants, enforcing DOGE, taking the Panama Canal back, terminating mainstream media? How come these morons can't explain that? Oh, he's a liar, and this is this, and this is that, and this. Where's the lie at? Where is it incorrect? Why would quote-unquote Joe hand all these executive orders with national emergencies back to President Trump, then turn around and call him a fascist, a dictator, a king, a Nazi, a threat to all these things? Deporting the illegal migrants? Executive orders? Enforcing DOGE? How come they never explain why quote-unquote Joe funded DOGE in the American Family Rescue Plan Act of 2021? Do you hear how easy this is, but also stupid for the morons out there and the laggards? The ones who just love drama and propaganda? Do you not hear how easy this is? quote-unquote Joe, to the average American that thought he was real and thought he was president, funded Doge in an American Family Rescue Plan Act. How can you, if people thought it was real, how could someone whine and complain, call President Trump every name under the sun, but funded it? The Panama Canal. Panama Canal. President Trump said it was China, then he said Hong Kong, which everybody who understands the Hong Kong-China correlation, and go look all that up, read all about it. But Hong Kong. July 14, 2020. Executive Order 13936 with the national emergency. There's one of those 8 executive orders that we're talking about, the Panama Canal. What just happened a few months ago? United States Marine Corps, who just had their birthday November the 10th. 250 years. Hoorah. Happy birthday. USMC, you devil dogs, you. All right. I got a lot of friends, Marine Corps. All right. What just happened a few months ago? We sent 4,000 Marine Corps to Panama. So President Trump is a dictator, a pedophile, a king, a Nazi, a communist, a threat. But quote-unquote Joe continued Executive Order 13936 from July 14th, 2020, 5 years ago, for President Trump just to receive on January the 20th, 2025 with a big red bow on it. Here you go, President Trump. Here's 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. We didn't touch them. We didn't terminate them. We didn't let them terminate. They all had an automatic termination clause on them via law, 1976 law, but we didn't do anything to them, so we're going to call you a Nazi and a communist and a terrorist and a pedophile and all these other names. You've got to be an absolute stupid moron to sit here and want to argue after any of this. You just have to be. You're either a moron and or you need deported because you're an enemy of the Republic. You need to be arrested, detained, sent to Gitmo, sent somewhere. And if you can't be tried in the Uniform Code of Military Justice of military courts as a regular civilian because you weren't a part of the bigger picture, you should be sent to Tasmania or somewhere like that to where there's not a lot of population there, and then you can live down there and you can find a way to survive with all the Tasmanian devils, which you might as well. You probably fit in because you act like a devil, and you look like a devil, you talk like a devil. You'll probably fit in down there with your counterparts. Because there ain't no Republican that's a true MAGA, that's a true patriot, but also there is no true operator that I know that has an issue with you being different, looking different, talking different, from the standpoint of in your household doing what you want to do. If you want to look like a whatever, a freak show in your household, be willing to walk out in public though and someone go, ugh, you know, ugh. But if you want to be yourself, but be willing to do what? Face the consequences. If someone says, shouldn't have wore that, fishnets are for fishing, not your fat cellulite thighs. Sorry. You know, some people are just honest. If you let it affect you, though, then you let it affect you. All right? Some people are just honest. Honesty isn't always telling you what you want to hear. It's telling what you need to hear. And then how come these people never explain why quote-unquote Joe relinquished all his presidential authority for the people that thought he was real, which he wasn't, but for the people that thought that, this is what this was. In executive documents of Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, in the executive documents, it is showing that quote-unquote Joe, July the 19th, 2021, let's do our West Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi hillbilly math here. Let's do it. January 20th, 2021. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Not even a full 6 months, old quote-unquote Joe is relinquishing his authority. the delegation of the authority and the functions vested in the President of 1550 to the Secretary of War. Who was the President of 1550? What is right here again on this Uniform Code of Military Justice update? December the 20th, 2019 was when Section 1550 was put into Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. But Title 50, Chapter 33 is your War Powers Resolution Act under the War and National Defense, which is Secretary of War, Department of War, and Congressional. December the 20th, 2019, who was the president? President Donald John Trump. Just like the National Guard in these cities. Joint Publication 3-57 was put into law, military, but also conjoined with federal, 1995, ladies and gentlemen. In this Joint Publication 3-57, which is your civil and military operations, meaning civil law enforcement and military operations, any kind of soldier, Joint Publication 3-57, page 46, says that generally you don't want Title 10 military working directly with law enforcement unless what? Unless Congress or the Constitution deems so. December the 20th, 2019. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 was put in as an entry, a temporary entry, meaning future presidents won't be using this, but it's for the strategic plan, strategic operation, special operation. Congress put that there. Guess whose President Trump's Congress was back then? It was a Democrat-controlled House of Representatives and a Republican-controlled Senate. A bipartisan Congress put in Section 1550 from the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 into the War Powers Resolution Act under Title 50, which is War and National Defense. And President Trump has proclamated and told you over and over and over again to you civilians who have nothing to do with the military, he has told you over and over again, occupied territory, puppet government, government in exile, white flag of surrender, capitulations, contingency operations. As just a couple weeks ago, a contingency operation to pay the military. And what did this tell you? What does it say about civilians being tried in a military court? That it can happen under what? Occupied territory? It says right here, whenever the courts can't function in a civilian sector, which means what? Continuity of government. We're still in a partial continuity of government to this day, because there's a partial revocation of Executive Order 13961. And President Trump has a new executive order in March of this year that is a piece of that continuity of government. You're watching a strategic, pre-planned special operation. The 45-47, like a broken record, see the brackets here? You got to put it like that. This whole thing is your visual. All you need to know is what this means. You don't need Fox News. You don't need OAN. You don't need Newsmax. You don't need any big blue check that was with you long before then who are doing nothing but putting 100, 200 posts out a day. They're algorithm whores. All right, that is no way to live your life. All you need is this. You don't need all these other people out there who will ask you a question. Well, what do you think about this? That is to get you to correspond on their comment boxes. Do you ever see me baiting you with questions on any of my pages that have a post on it? Do you see me putting a little one-sentence line up? What do you think about this? And what's your opinion? That is all to get the algorithms flowing and going, and to make their posts and their pages more visible for their ulterior motives and intent, which is predominantly money. Predominantly money. They want you to monetize. All their pages are monetized, right? So when you're watching their videos, they're monetized. And when they're getting millions of views, they're monetized. They're getting paid for that. Mine are not monetized. Mine are actually banned from monetization. Every bit of me sitting here talking to you, on my time, on my dime, because I love that the fact that these people, 99% of blue badges and red badges do not tell you what you can and need to know. It's right here, 45-47. Why? Because most of them are what? Civilians. They're not military. They're not veterans. They have no idea, and they're stirring you up, ruffling your feathers. And then you got the others out there who are blatantly trying to mislead you and distract you and also confuse you with chaos and all kinds of false information, false accusations, etc. All right? Now, I heard Kid Rock say this a long time ago. You can't find it on Google anywhere or like an actual article because he was on some kind of show one time or whatever it was. He said this, but he said, if you're going to say something about me, you damn sure better make sure it will embarrass me. And he said, I can assure you right now, there ain't nothing in the world you can dig up on me that's going to embarrass me because I know where I've been and what I've done. All right? So there's people out there, they say, oh, Derek Johnson's talking to married women and this, that, and that. If I was talking to a married woman, let me go ahead and tell you right now, Red Rover, better not send her ass on over because she ain't coming home your wife if she's talking to me. So see, all these things out there, people say stuff all the time because they want to stir you up, drama, propaganda, because they don't know what they're talking about already. They don't give you anything you can chew on that can benefit your life, that can absolutely take you away from all the distractions, the drama, or anything. All they want to do is stir you up, and that is not how military operates. That's not how anybody in intel works or anything of that nature. A lot of these people use the term intel. They ain't got no intel. They don't know intel. The military don't go after people who have, well, I'm going to go ahead and say it just because. The military don't go after people who have on their record history with minors and things of that nature. If the military ever went after people who have never been in the military and they have any form of criminal record whatsoever, guess what the veterans would do? All the veterans in external positions, operators, would go, you went and got that person? When we have all these veterans over here who are qualified, who love this country, who would give anything to have another opportunity to fight for this country, and you went after these people? Ain't how it works, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of you quote-unquote patriots that think you're an anon, you're not. Anon is a short term for anonymous. If you have a name and a face, you're not an anon. Now, you can be a patriot, and you can be someone fighting for your country, absolutely, but you're not an anon. There's a lot of things that have been taken out of context, terminology, and the validity of that. Know your place, know your lane, know what you're supposed to know. All right? You want a rabbit hole if JFK is still alive and all these other things? Great. Do that on your time. But the foundation of the United States of America, military and government, the small government that we need, not a big government, but just the portion of government we do need to function and operate, all right, because of how big we are population-wise, you need a foundation of that, all right? It ain't about who's alive and who ain't. None of that matters. Some of you are so focused on shit that don't matter that you make yourself miserable when you focus on crap that don't matter. It's no bearing on anything whatsoever. And you think people have a list out there of people who have been terminated. No one has that list but the commanders. Nobody. And you are doing President Donald John Trump and all generals, all admirals a disjustice when you believe stuff like that. When you go and believe that. Has it been done? Yes, we can say it's been done. But the only people with those lists that are going to verify that and validate that are the people who are doing it with integrity, because it still has to be done humanely with integrity. We can't make a mockery out of killing people. Now, you can absolutely want punishment. Absolutely. As we all do. And a lot of these people deserve the guillotine. They deserve a lot of things, especially for what they did to children. Absolutely. But there still has to have integrity behind it. There still has to be a portion of this that has integrity, meaning that it was all done lawfully and it was all presented to the people in the right context, in the right manner, in the right way, where we can make sure for history's sake, but also future history, that we get this correct and it never replicates again. And so many people, you're just following shit. You're following shit, people. You're following shit. And it has to be said that way. It just has to be said that way. You have no respect for chain of command. You have no respect for authority. You have no respect for functions, operations, but the integrity in those functions and operations, because a lot of you just don't even know it. You should want to know it. You should want to know that. You should want to know every step along the way. You should want to know how this all, it goes from here to here and here to here. From here to there and there to here. And if you'd have yourself a solid foundation, again, in what you're supposed to know, just little things. That's why I did put all those in one book here, the Midnight Rider Bible. Now, you ain't got to buy it. You just, yeah, I named off all the titles. You ain't got to buy that. But it's all in one location for people. And until you have a solid foundation in the very core principles and values of the United States of America foundation, only then can you combat a moron and or enemy of the Republic. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, we are a republic. We are not a democracy. Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14, Founding Father, Father of the Constitution, Author of the Constitution, Author of the Bill of Rights, James Madison, in Federalist Paper number 10 and 14, tells you how democracies, pure democracies, are dangerous. Look how many people walk around, even Republicans, saying the word democracy. They ought to be slapped upside the head. We have so much ignorance in this nation when it is so simple to have a simple foundation, a solid foundation that works for everybody. If people would divorce their emotions, divorce their feelings, and learn how to think broad for humanity, broad for people, broad in that context. It's how our founders designed it. It's how our founders wanted it. Our founders separated religion. They didn't put that in writing. That was just a verbal known thing. They separated this on purpose. They didn't want your personal lives out there. They didn't want your personal lives in this. Had nothing to do with that. So, you know, veterans out there that do know what's going on, there's a lot of veterans that know what's going on, but they don't want to name, they don't want to face. And they are texting me daily. They write me daily. They go, brother, keep going. Keep it going, baby. You got it. We got it. Keep it going. Right? There's some who don't want names and faces. All right, but there's a lot more who know what's going on than what don't. But you're doing every one of them an injustice. You're also disrespecting their service, their sacrifice, when you don't know the simplicities of military and the simplicities of government and how they coincide and how they conjoin and how they operate. But especially when there's a clear visual that the boss man right here is the face of. He's the face of it. Now, he's smart too, and he's intellectual, and he ain't what a lot of these liberals make of him. All right? They're going to have their time too. The good Lord sees what they're doing, but he's the face of it. He put his name, brand, and image on this. But the generals and the admirals who put this strategic plan together, a lot of them, you'll never know who they are because they don't want you to know that. They didn't do it for this. But I know who a lot of them are. I know them. A lot of them. Not all of them, but I know a lot of them. And you're only doing them an injustice for the sacrifice that they have made. When you think of a general and an admiral, they've spent their whole life in the military. And a lot of them, when they get out, they're still fighting it. They still, because it's their whole life. So you're doing them an injustice, and you're only disrespecting them and their service when you do that. But especially every memorial grave across this land. And I'm going to say this again just because I know it'll piss off some people, and I'm going to do it. But if you think Charlie Kirk was what America needed to wake up, shame on you. Shame on you. shame on you. You need to go. You need to go to wherever you are. Every state has one. You need to take your rear end down to a national memorial cemetery. You need to park your vehicle at the very front gate or wherever the parking is. You need to take your happy rear end in the United States of America that was fought and paid for by every service member laying in their memorial graves, and you need to look at those rolling hills. All the stones look alike for a reason. And you need to take your butt out there, and if you can't gasp for air and gasp for breath for every man and woman who has fallen for this nation in these rolling hills, in these cemeteries, if you cannot gasp for breath and feel that punch in your stomach for all the men and women, predominantly 17 to 20 years old, who died for you, you're not worthy of being an American. You're not worthy of it. They can no longer speak, so people like me speak for them. They all raise their right hand if they were active duty and reserve components under Title 10, if they were National Guard under Title 32. They all took that same oath, which talks about obeying the president, the orders of the president, and the officers appointed over me according to what? Regulations, depending on what branch you were in, and the Uniform Code on Military Justice. I suggest every person know all these things. If you love the military, you should want to know it. If you love President Trump, you should want to know it. If you love the United States of America, you should want to know that. You should want to know our history, our origin, and our foundation. And when you know that, you're going to be standing proudly. You're going to be able to pat your chest, and you're going to feel that feeling. You're going to feel that passion. Then you're going to understand why people like me sit here on my time, my dime, and feel that feeling, that fire. You're going to realize all the naysayers and all the morons, you will never be criticized more than anybody doing more than you. It's always someone doing less than you. And you're going to feel what it feels like not to worry about ankle biters, little nagging chihuahuas, right? Little nagging Pomeranians, right? You're not going to worry about it because they don't matter anyway. God knows all. God sees all. All right? God knows who's fighting. God knows who ain't. And guess what God also put in the Word? There's a time appointed a man to die. Everybody's going to die. Not everybody's going to be remembered, though. Do you want to be remembered? And if you do, you probably should want to be remembered for good reasons, don't you? Right? You want to be remembered as a good mother, a good father, a father of integrity, a mother of integrity, a mom who fought. Maybe you're a single mom out there. You're fighting like all whatever. Yeah, come on. Right? You want to be remembered for good reasons to whoever it is around you. Right? You want to be a good human. You want to be a good parent. You want to be a good brother, sister, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, godmother, godfather, whatever it may be. You want to be remembered. Right? So that requires doing what? Pulling your weight, doing your part, and knowing how to be that. Well, pretty simple. Right? So God says there's a time appointed to man, so a lot of people are just going to die. They existed on the planet. They didn't live. A lot of people exist. Not everybody lives. A lot of people exist. Not everybody finds their purpose. And if you're too busy worrying about all these other people over here and what they're saying on that, you ain't ever going to find your purpose. Now, I had a buddy who passed away a couple years ago. His birthday would be this week. All right. In a couple of days, he'd have a birthday. And he died way too young. But he used to say all the time, man, I can't wait to have a hit song. I can't wait to have a hit song. Or I can't wait till you're half hated by America. Because when you're half hated, you're half loved. And when you're half loved, he said, I'm going right on to the bank. I'm going to cash my check for my hit song. He was talking about a certain group out there in country music who was hated. And he was like, well, when you're half hated, you're half loved, and the ones who half love you are the ones that were going to be providing him a hit song. All right? And I was blessed to be able to give him a hit song. So, anyway, It wasn't the number one hit, but we had a Billboard hit. All right, so that's how the world works, right? You're only going to be criticized by those who are doing less than you. The cheapest boos, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats, right? And there was another baseball legend in history who used to say this, kind of the same thing too, that the ones who are booing ain't on the field. All right, so that's how that works. So you can apply that the same way. The ones who are fighting, those of you patriots out there, you're fighting hard, you're fighting a good fight, you're on the field. The ones who are giving you resistance, they ain't on the field. They ain't nowhere near it. Right? So you stand your ground, you stand it, but when you know your foundation, you know your history, you know your origins, and you got that, that's the same thing as the Bible. God talks about the Bible. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. I mean, listen to that. Listen to what that, no weapon formed against me will prosper. And then also, be still and know that I am God. Right when you think there's turmoil and there's chaos and there's all these things, be still and know that I'm God. Now, I'm going to end with this. Everybody's seen this movie, most of you. This is the attitude that you should have. Now, this is the only time I'm ever going to preach to you and tell you what you should do. But if you love the United States of America, if you love our history, our origin, our foundation, if you're fighting a good fight for all the right reasons, if you love President Donald John Trump for all the right reasons, the military for all the right reasons, what you should look like is Lieutenant Dan on the top of that ship in Bayou La Battery, Alabama. All right? Except one thing. You got to deviate. He was yelling at God. You don't need to be yelling at God. But take the yelling at God out and apply, you call this a storm? I'll show you a storm. Apply that attitude towards liberals, Democrats, haters, naysayers, Karens of the world, and whatever it is for the males out there. Chad, I think, was what they used for the males. All right? Apply that. That's the way your attitude should be. Every single day you wake up, you should be like, what's going on today? But you can't know what's going on until you know the blueprint of the commander, the supreme commander, wartime President Donald John Trump. The generals, the admirals, the strategic special operation. You should have that attitude, that fire, that passion. You should want to ball that fist up and dare the enemy to say something to you. Say something. Say it. I want you to. Say it. Look me in the eyes and say it. You won't. Because every time, the Bible tells you, when you mention the Word of God, when you mention Jesus Christ, when you mention the blood of Christ, when you mention God, when you say anything to do with God, when you say anything to do with Christ around the devil, he has to flee. I'm telling you right now, that darkness is that light is shining on that darkness. They're supposed to retaliate. They're supposed to call you names. They're supposed to laugh at you, ridicule you, mock you, all that. They're supposed to. But guess what the Bible says as I close? I sound like a preacher, don't I? As I close. What does the Bible say in the 23rd Psalm? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now, in that context, if you look up the Hebrew origin of that, it's saying the shadow of the darkness, in the darkness. Yea, though I walk through the darkness. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thine art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they protect me. Now listen to what it says, though. Here's the key part of that whole thing that applies to what I'm talking about. God himself says he will prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. Now, can you imagine Jesus Christ walking to that cross with all them people yelling, laughing, throwing, spitting, ridiculing, mocking, thorns on his head, bleeding, sweating, tired, weary, everything you can imagine. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the humiliation? Can you imagine that feeling? You should be able to, because that's what you are right now. The whole world thinks that our little tiny percentile don't mean anything. It's nothing. And that little bitty tiny percentile makes up this right here. You're a part of that tiny percentile because it ain't mainstream yet. You're a tiny part of this. You're that ridicule and mockery and shame and all the things they're throwing at you. But you have a visual. You have your visual validation that you're not wrong. You're not incorrect. You are accurate. This is all you need. It don't matter how many say no, nay, that ain't true, that ain't it. I just have to just throw it down and pick it back up again. Here it is, 45-47. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Nowhere in the Bible does it talk about fearing anything. Nowhere in the Word does it say to fear anything. The Bible says, I didn't give you the spirit of fear, but a love, a power, and a sound mind. How come so many people that claim to be a Christian don't have a sound mind? How come it? Now, you can be passionate, fiery like me. That don't mean you don't have a mind. A sound mind means that I ain't worried about anything. I have a blueprint. I have a foundation. I have an origin, a history. And God knows that. God provided that. God gave us this. God gave us this operation. God gave us this dash. I will prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. God has you protected. All you got to do is walk in faith, walk by faith, and trust God and trust the plan. But you got to also be what? You can't lean on a shovel and pray for a hole. This ain't what this is about. You can't be saying, God wins, and be sitting back here. No. Yeah, God wins, yes, but you got to contribute to it. You can't lean on a shovel and pray for a hole. It don't work like that. Be like Lieutenant Dan. Don't yell at God, though. You call this a storm? Come on, devil. Say something to me. Say something. Because I guarantee you one thing. I'm a walking testimony. I'm a walking testimony. I've had people try to steal from me, lie about me, make stuff up, frame me. Family members. You don't even have to be some stray person. Family members trying to lie about me, steal from me, say all kinds of things. But guess what they never do? They never do it to your face because they're cowards. The devil and his prowlers, they work in darkness. When the light shined on them and shone on them, they cannot operate and they cannot function. So therefore, you got to walk in the light. You got to know the truth. You got to walk in the truth. You got to walk by faith. You got to know the faith, have the faith, practice the faith. All right? Baptism is no good unless you're tested. All right? You see people baptized all the time. Baptism and faith is no good unless you're tested. Baptism under fire, baby. That's inscripted in one of my buckles. That's a trophy buckle that was given to me and presented to me a long time ago. Baptism under fire, baby. Let them shoot at you. No weapon formed against you will prosper. Know your foundation. All right, know that. Then you'll be able to understand part 1. Part 2, special operations. This is heavily special operations. And then just for the fun of it, this has also been pretty funny. The deplorable pilgrims, liberals, all asses, no brains. Can't be any more true. A tale of hypocrites. Don't be a hypocrite. Nobody wants a hypocrite. So, the way you find all my pages, correct pages, because there's a lot of frauds out there, and a lot of deceit, a lot of that as well, is Linktree, Linktree. TR period, that's where the period goes. Like if you were doing .com, the period goes after the R, before the E, LINKTR period, EE / 1776 Nation. That's how you find me on all the pages. All right. So books, if you want them signed by me, then you got to go through Rattletrap, RATTLETRAP1776.com. Rattletrap1776.com. If you want them quick for like a birthday, a Christmas, or something like that, if it's like a day or two before Christmas, something like that, not weeks before, then you need to go through Amazon. If you're international, you need to go through Amazon. That's how you find my books. Also, now my books are all linked together on Amazon. You can just click on author Derek Jonhson and it'll pull up all my books. Also, make sure that you leave a 5-star review for those. All right, because one star negates 4 or 5 5-stars. All right, so we got morons out there who never read any single book. They want to go trash things like that. So make sure you leave a review. All right, but you know, highly recommend buying it if you're going to leave a review. I also don't want reviews just because it's a review, but sometimes it does help because we have what? We have the prowlers out there who use fake names, can't even show their name in the face because they're wusses, they're sissies, all right? They're devils in disguise. I love and appreciate everybody, though. I do want everybody to know every Patriot on 1776 Nation, Derek Jonhson Country, Rattletrap 1776, Rattletrap 1776 Nation, all my official authentic pages. You're the Patriots, right? And I do these videos for your friends and your family because those are the ones we have to get to. I hate when you're talked down to. I hate when they ridicule you. So these are for them. Right? If you're a patriot, you already know what's going on. You don't need me to talk to you about what's going on. We got to get to your friends and your family who are calling you names, ridiculing you, laughing you, mocking you, whatever it is. Maybe these are for them. All right? And you say, hey, if you love this nation, if you love the military, if you love this and respect this and appreciate it, then you might want to know this. And have them watch it and rewatch it. Say, look, these videos are made to watch, rewatch, write down, watch. If you can't afford the book, don't want the book, great. They're there for you if you want them. They're there for a keepsake if you want them. But if you can't afford them, I understand that's what my pages are designed for. That's why I don't have monetization on my pages. That's also why I don't have endorsements, sponsors, or anything on my pages. You come to my page and guess what you get? Nothing but post.gov.mil, how it links together, the 45-47. And I do ask that if you love my music, that's the way that you can support me, is streaming my music, YouTube, Spotify, and or buying a CD off the website. Woo! Man. 45-47, President Donald John Trump, Supreme Commander. Be sure to share this video.